Under the cold moonlight, a storm of steel and blood erupts across the estate. The once proud warriors of a great clan are cut down without a shred of mercy. In the center of the carnage stands the traitor, Seon-Ugi, laughing at his family's pathetic defense. Hes merely a pawn, however, for the real mastermind, the blood demon cult's leader, Dudong. She watches the massacre with a smug grin, mocking her new pet for being so cruel to his own kin. But the dead are just scenery for her. Her real interest lies with a single child still standing. It's the young heir, Seon-Ujin, whose spirit is shattered, crying tears of blood for his fallen family. Dudang then issues a chilling command for the traitor to finish the job by killing the last two survivors. One of them, Seonu-Yunha, meets the order with a defiant glare, her hand gripping her sword. But Jin can only stare at the ground, utterly broken, whispering that he could never be the hero they needed. But in his despair, a memory surfaces, a gentle hand on his shoulder, and a familiar voice. The spectral image of his mentor appears, reminding him that he did his best, and that the outcome was never his burden to bear. Those words reignite a spark in Jin's eyes. He remembers being told that as long as he doesn't give up, he hasn't truly lost. His grip tightens on his sword. He realizes if he's captured, he'll just become another one of Dudang's puppets. And so, he makes a choice. If he has to die, it will be cleanly, and by his own will. His brother, Seon-Ugi, can only stare in horror, shouting at him, unable to comprehend what's happening. Jin looks at him with a chilling, blood-soaked grin, promising that while his life may end, his corpse will never be used. Then, with a final, defiant act, he plunges the blade into his own heart as his brother screams in denial. As his life fades, his only regret is that he ran away instead of fighting for his brothers. His body dissolves into a mysterious purple energy, his final thoughts lamenting the talent he never got to show the world. But death is not the end, it's a return to the beginning, to the sound of his father's furious roar. Jin is suddenly younger, heavier, kneeling with his hands bound, completely lost. Before him stands a ghost from his past, Seonu-Jung, the head of his family. He can barely stammer the word father, his mind struggling to grasp this impossible reality. Everything feels wrong, like a waking nightmare he can't escape. He looks down at the ropes cutting into his wrists, a prisoner in his own home. The accusation is finally thrown, his father demanding he confess to murdering the third son of the Dan family. The words don't make sense. Dan Ha-sang was to be his brother-in-law? He killed him? His mind flashes to a warmer memory, sharing drinks with his one and only friend. But then it twists into a darker vision of his friend's body on the floor, a crime he was too drunk to remember but knows he could never commit. A chilling realization dawns on him. He's returned to the exact moment he was framed for murder. Bound and helpless, Jin can only stammer that he doesn't remember anything. His father explodes in rage, roaring at his son's foolish response. He gestures to his other children, the eldest, second, and fourth sons, wondering how he can possibly atone to the Dan family. His brothers smirk, suggesting they just cripple Jin and send him over, letting the Dan family vent their anger directly. The youngest, Seon-Ugi, chimes in with a better idea. Send their useless third brother to the front lines. After all, he's a dead man walking anyway. He might as well be useful before he dies. The other two quickly agree if Jin goes to the front, it means they don't have to. Jin's blood runs cold as he remembers what that meant, the demonic cult front. A brutal war zone established after the Murim alliance barely stopped the blood demon cult's advance into the Central Plains. Jin understood perfectly. With his weak martial arts, this incident was the perfect excuse to get rid of him. For his brothers, it was the ideal outcome, and he was certain one of them had plotted this entire mess. And so, just as he remembered from his past life, his father condemned him to the front lines. Thrown into a dark cell, he waits, knowing that two people came to visit him that fateful night. This time, he resolves to find out the truth as footsteps approach his cell. The first to arrive is his sister, Seon-Yu-Yan-ha, her face filled with concern for her brother. He assures her he's fine, but she cuts him off, insisting that she knows he's not the culprit. A small smile plays on his lips. Last time, he just cried and thanked her, but this time will be different. Her eyes widen, surprised by his newfound calm, as she asks how he can be so sure of himself. He looks at her through the bars and lays out the simple truth. He had no reason to kill his only friend, who was also her fiancé. He calmly explains they were just drinking together, questioning how his sword, which he didn't even have, ended up in his friend's back. Yunha's eyes tremble, her mind reeling as she asks why he didn't plead this case to their father. A confident, almost unnerving smile spreads across his face as he tells her that going to the front lines is a far better choice for him. His mind drifts back to his lonely childhood, forced to survive on his own after losing his mother. He was born a prodigy with an excellent memory, But in the treacherous Son-U family, that was a dangerous trait to have. So, to survive, he hid his genius behind the mask of a gluttonous, simple-minded fool, an act that slowly consumed him until he truly became the family's shame, a moron to be ridiculed for 21 years. But now, he knows that to truly change, he must escape this family and meet his idol on the front lines, the gale-flying dragon, Seol-pung. Snapping back to the present, he watches his sister walk away, and a cold realization hits him something has changed. Last time, she tried to comfort him, but now she just leaves. He wonders if it's because he didn't cry this time around. He sits there, trying to process the changes in his timeline, when a shadow falls over his cell. A sudden jolt of surprise hits him as he recognizes the visitor. It's his father, the head of the Son-U family, staring at him with an unfamiliar intensity. Jin is stunned. Even his father feels completely different from the man he knew before. He remembers the original timeline, how his father merely sighed and left him to rot. But this time, instead of silence, his father asks a question that cuts straight to the heart of the matter. Jin's mind races. Did he overhear the conversation with Yunha? Is that what changed things? Then, the patriarch drops an absolute bombshell. He always knew Jin was just pretending to be a fool. His voice cracks with a deep, painful regret, admitting his own weakness ruined his son's life. And Jin is left utterly speechless, because the cold, distant father he remembered had always just left him alone. And in that moment of clarity, Jin finally understands. His father wasn't just cold, he was navigating the immense political power of the maternal relatives. So when the patriarch offers him a boon, a chance to ask for anything at all, Jin seizes the opportunity, requesting a single day in the family head's exclusive library. The request catches his father completely off guard. The library? For just one day? Jin explains with feigned humility that he's ashamed of his ignorance and wants to learn something before being sent to the front lines. But his true ambition burns within, to master the family's ultimate technique, the Seon-U 13 swords. His father scoffs at the idea of learning martial arts from a book in a day, but Jin insists it's better than nothing. With a heavy sigh, perhaps seeing a flicker of something new in his son, he agrees to the request. Jin's heart leaps with victory, but his father's next word stops him cold. However, the patriarch's condition is revealed. Learning an internal energy technique alone is too dangerous, so he will teach Jin himself. Stunned, Jin scrambles into the lotus position, not daring to question this sudden turn of events. His father's hands glow with a fearsome red energy as he announces what he's about to pass on, the primordial infinite art. He begins reciting the oral secrets, pouring the foundational knowledge of the universe directly into his son. Jin's mind reels in disbelief. This is the ultimate technique, reserved only for the family head and the heir. This should be a moment of triumph, a joyous occasion, but a strange, unsettling feeling begins to creep in. As his father's hand rests on his back, the feeling intensifies. Something about this isn't right. Meanwhile, his brothers storm into protest, furious that their father would let that bastard into the sacred library. The eldest sons plead with him to reconsider, their faces a mask of outrage and jealousy. But their complaints are brushed aside. It is only for a day. And with that, Jin is left alone in the vast, silent library. A question hangs in the air: is one day really enough? A wicked grin spreads across Jin's face. For him, it's more than enough. He picks up a tome, his mission clear, not to practice, but to cram every word into his head. After all, he's a prodigy, with a perfect memory that allowed him to copy any art he saw. A skill so powerful his old captain had even given it a name: scene recall. He sits confidently, ready to imprint every last secret this library holds onto his very soul. First, the primordial infinite art, and then the family's legendary 13 swords. But reality hits hard, and soon he's sprawled on the floor, completely and utterly drained. He might have memorized the words, but he doesn't understand a single thing about the sword art. Defeated for now, he gives up, deciding he desperately needs some fresh air. He flops onto the grass, completely spent and moaning that he's about to die. The mental exertion has left him utterly drained, his mind a total blank. For a moment, he considers just giving up. What's the point if he can't understand a thing? But his pity party is rudely interrupted by a voice dripping with contempt. A group of his clan members strolls by, sneering that they always knew he couldn't learn martial arts. A lady with them asks who the lazy guy on the ground is. His eldest brother, Seonu Chong, introduces Jin as the family's shameful third son. He explains that their father is only letting him train because he's being sent to fight the blood demon cult tomorrow. The news shocks the lady, while Jin can only look up as his family glares down at him. Seong dismisses him as a worthless pig, being sent to the front lines simply to pay for his sins. The lady is more interested in another guest, the famous Jagal Seoyul, a genius from a once-dismissed family. She muses that the prodigy must be here to gain experience, completely missing the toxic family drama. Meanwhile, Jin remains on the ground, about to face yet another tormentor. His fourth brother, Seon-Woo-gi, approaches with a sneer, asking what he could have possibly learned in the archives. Jin just tries to brush him off, saying one day changes nothing as he attempts to leave. But Gi won't let him go, throwing a casual punch to put his worthless brother in his place. In a stunning turn of events, Jin's hand snaps up, catching the fist with a flare of violet energy. Gi is thrown back, his face a mask of pure, utter disbelief. What just happened? The block worked, but the searing pain reminds Jin that his first priority must be to fix this weak body. His other brothers erupt in laughter, mocking Gi for being stopped by a pig and claiming the family shame is now his to bear. Furious and humiliated, Gi lunges forward to put his brother back in his place. He unleashes a flurry of strikes, pummeling Jin across the training ground. Jin grits his teeth through the pain, but as he's beaten, a faint energy begins to circulate. A strange thought crosses his mind. He's never seen this technique, yet it feels intimately familiar. Gi, however, is certain of what he's doing, channeling his family's power. He perfectly executes the Seonu clan's signature martial art, landing a brutal strike. But instead of crying out, Jin's face breaks into a wide, almost crazed smile. He thinks it's excellent. Gi stops dead in his tracks, completely bewildered by his brother's bizarre reaction. Jin quickly tries to cover it up, claiming it was a slip of the tongue while daring him to attack again. His other brothers erupt in laughter, mocking Gi that his attacks must feel good to the pig. Fueled by rage and humiliation, Gi unleashes another strike, but Jin just laughs and welcomes the pain. Because with every blow, he's learning finally, understanding the subtleties he could never grasp from a scroll. He dissects the movements in real time, recognizing the combination as the Seonu clan's Gale Wave. But Gi's execution is sloppy, his form imperfect, and has left himself completely wide open. In a flash of purple energy, Jin counters, striking his brother with a technique he's never physically used. The blow sends Gi staggering backward, blood spitting from his mouth in utter disbelief. He collapses to the ground, defeated by a single strike, as his other brothers watch in stunned silence. The eldest, Song, scoffs that the pig got lucky and arrogantly demands he show them that technique too. But Jin can't. The single move has completely drained him, and he slumps to the ground, cursing his weak body. From a distance, two women look on with disdain, remarking how pathetic it is to see them abandon their injured brother. Called out, Seong quickly saves face, pretending he was just about to check on his poor, injured brother. Jin watches the pathetic display, realizing he was a fool for ever letting these hypocrites torment him. Once they're finally gone, he collapses, cursing the weak body that holds back his true power. But he's not alone for long. A towering shadow falls over him, and Jin looks up in shock to see his father. He stammers, trying to explain the fight, but the clan head simply tells him he's worked hard. Then come the words Jin has never heard in his entire life: "I'm proud of you." His father sits with him, confessing that his life of duty and political marriages has left him with deep regrets. Jin just listens, stunned by this sudden, raw honesty from the man he's always feared. The patriarch then changes the subject, asking if Jin has read the clan's most secret sword manual. After getting his answer, the old man stands, declaring he'll practice his swordsmanship for the first time in an age. With his blade in hand, the clan head's eyes gleam with a resolve Jin has never seen before. He erupts into motion, a whirlwind of steel as he performs the Seon-U 13 sword forms. Jin watches, stunned, as his father cycles through the entire set, then again, each time faster. This isn't just practice, it's a masterclass, a private lesson from the patriarch himself, and it's all for him. The realization hits Jin with the force of a physical blow. Later, surrounded by his clan's ancient texts, Jin finishes reading the ancestral diaries, but he feels frustrated, admitting he could barely grasp the forms, let alone the profound insights. As he closes one of the books, though, his fingers catch on something strange. He examines the cover more closely. One side feels unnaturally thick. A spark of curiosity lights up his eyes as he carefully begins to pry it open. He knew it. Tucked away within the false cover was a hidden manuscript. Carefully, he unrolls the aged parchment, revealing diagrams for a technique he's never seen. The 14th form. His heart pounds as he flips it over. There's another one on the back. The 15th form. But the Seonu sword style was only supposed to have 13. The realization hits him like a tidal wave. The clan's history, their ultimate art, was incomplete. Suddenly, a faint noise from the main house cuts through the heavy silence. Elsewhere, his sister, Yeonha, sits at her vanity, preparing for an important visitor. Her reflection stares back, her eyes holding a grim resolve and a familiar red glow. Their guest is none other than the celestial sword blossom of the Jagal family, the renowned Jagal Seo Yul. And as she arrives, it seems someone else is also getting ready for this momentous meeting. Soanu Yunha broods, frustratedly thinking she just needs a little more time. Her focus is suddenly broken by the hushed gossip of her maids. They whisper about how the fourth master, Gi, was beaten by Jin and fainted in front of Lady Jagal. The maids find this hilarious, bursting into laughter at the sheer embarrassment of it all. But their amusement vanishes as Yunha rises, her eyes glowing a menacing crimson. The terrified servants can only confirm the story they were just laughing about. A silent, cold fury grips her. How dare he? Meanwhile, the very same Lady Jagal is being handed a report. Her companion presents the information on the Xian-U family's third young master. She leans in with a curious smile, wondering about the fat young master who shocked her earlier. Her companion dryly notes that he saw Jin's eyes, like a straight line buried under all that fat. He can't help but let out a little laugh at the image. Jagal Seoyul teases him, suggesting Jin's resemblance to his treasured doll is the real reason for his interest. But he denies it, explaining that the move Jin used to knock out the fourth master was far from ordinary. She concedes that his eye for talent is sharper than hers, but still scoffs at a pig who collapses from one move. With a sigh, she gives up trying to understand his strange curiosities. Her gaze shifts, a playful glint appearing in her eyes. She changes the subject, asking if he can even see the report with that long fringe of his. He assures her he can, but she presses on, wondering why he insists on hiding his handsome face. She leans in with a thoughtful look, offering to brush his hair back for him. He smoothly deflects, joking that if she drew any more attention, he might actually get jealous. Jagal Seo Yul bursts out laughing, relieved that he's not one for the spotlight. He smiles back, admitting he likes that she isn't a typical stuffy Jagal family member either. The scene then shifts to the past, where Xian Ujung gives a stoic farewell to his son. A younger Xian Ujin bows deeply before his father, promising to bring glory to their family. Outside, he thanks his sister Yun Ha for coming to see him off on his long journey. With a gentle smile, she offers him a carefully wrapped package. He asks what it is, and she explains she made him some rice balls for the road. Jin is touched that she prepared them herself, as she humbly admits the taste might not be perfect. But he is absolutely overjoyed, clutching the gift and beaming that she's the only one he can truly rely on. With his foot in the stirrup, Sun Ujin begins the long journey ahead. He shouts a final farewell as he and his escort ride away, leaving his siblings to watch from the courtyard. The group travels at a steady pace, making their way through the forested roads. But before long, the procession grinds to a halt as Jin struggles just to stay on his horse. He slumps over, completely exhausted, as his retainers ask if he's already given up. The escort's leader, a wandering swordsman named Jang Gang Song, eyes him with a worried look. But instead of complaining, Jin dismounts his horse with a sudden, shocking announcement. He'll run there. He calmly states his intention is to run all the way to Eunan to lose some weight. His men are absolutely baffled, stammering that his body could never handle such a grueling task. Jang Gang Song just sighs, reminding the young master that they have a contract and a deadline to keep. Jin calmly turns the question back on his escort, asking what they think of his horse. A fine steed, he admits, but his mind is already elsewhere. Then comes the bombshell. He's giving the horse to them. Jang Gang Song is speechless. The other guards can't hide their greed, whispering about the high price such a horse would bring. Jin smirks internally. Just as he thought, they're already planning how to take advantage of him. But Jang Gang Song lets out a heavy sigh, deciding it's time to be brutally honest with the young master. He explains that a horse of that value is far too much payment for their commission, a shocking display of integrity that catches Jin completely off guard. Humbled, Jin offers a sincere apology, admitting he misjudged the warrior's character. Jang, flustered, tries to backpedal, insisting that wasn't quite what he meant. But Jin clarifies his own reasoning. The horse would never fetch its true price at the front lines, and he needs to remove the temptation to rely on it. He frames it as mutual aid. In exchange for the horse, all he asks for is their genuine support. Jang Gang Song is stunned. The third young master is nothing like the spoiled brat from the rumors. With a firm handshake, the deal is struck, and the escorts pledge to do their best. And so, his grueling journey began, a 3-day ride on horseback, now an impossible trek on foot. But Jin is certain this run is exactly what he needs to be reborn. He hardens his resolve, vowing that this life, this time, will be absolutely different. Then, his body immediately and violently rejects this grand plan. An escort cautiously asks if he's throwing up just to get out of going. Wiping his mouth, Jin forces himself up, insisting he's rested enough and that they must move on. A short while later, he's completely collapsed, utterly exhausted as his new bodyguards look on. His escorts look on, one of them mockingly wondering if running was always this hard. Jin can only gasp for air, utterly defeated that he couldn't even last a quarter of an hour. Suddenly, a gentle hand begins to wipe the sweat from his face. He looks up to find a blue-haired girl, kindly offering him a handkerchief. Jin is instantly flustered, stammering apologies for letting Lady Cheong-yun see him in such a state. She's a bit surprised he knows her name, but he quickly explains he overheard it the day before. With a soft smile, she insists he take the cloth, telling him he can keep it. He presses the cool handkerchief to his cheek, a small moment of relief from his misery. She tells him to stay strong, promising that she'll be cheering for him. And just like that, his escorts are fawning over him, amazed and jealous that he received a gift from such a lady. Jin reflects that her kindness was probably just simple encouragement, but it makes his burden feel so much lighter. With newfound vigor, he rallies the men, roaring that they'll push on ahead, only to immediately collapse from exhaustion, his men sighing and patting his back. They all agree it's probably best to just stop for a meal, much to Jin's silent frustration. Resigned, he realizes this journey will involve a lot more eating on the road than he's used to. That night, as the escorts gather around a crackling campfire, Jin approaches the small clearing. He cheerfully asks if he can join them, surprising the men who expected him to eat alone. The lead guard, Jang Gangseong, allows it, but slyly asks why he isn't eating the food his sister packed. Jin just laughs, bluntly admitting that his sister's cooking is completely inedible. The entire camp erupts in laughter, the ice finally broken between the young master and his men. One guard jokes that his sister's future husband is in for a hard time, while another slyly asks if that's a self-confession. Jin's jovial expression instantly freezes, the playful jab hitting a little too close to home. His thoughts drift to a much darker place, a grim premonition taking hold. He feels a chilling certainty that he was never destined for warm, harmonious moments with his family. In his memories, Yunha had acted so differently, her wide, innocent eyes feigning concern. He remembers her worried look as she stood with their father, a look he mistook for genuine care. But now, he sees the contempt that was always there, the hatred he had foolishly misunderstood. The cold truth finally dawns on him. Yunha hadn't changed at all. He was just too blind to see it. She was never acting for his sake, and a horrifying suspicion emerges that she may have killed Dan Hasang. Just when he thought he'd finally understood his father and gained allies, this realization shatters him. His mind drifts back to a time when he was pushing himself past his limits, telling his escort he'd lost another sword. He could barely stand, yet he still reached out, humbly asking if he could borrow a saber. The journey to the front lines became a relentless training ground for him. While his escorts rested, he ran. While they ate, he swung his blade until his arms burned. He even sacrificed sleep, meditating through the night to cultivate his inner arts, knowing the battlefield was close. That place was a literal death trap, and the fear of death was the only thing driving him forward. His nonstop effort didn't go unnoticed, with one of the men admitting he'd never seen anyone train so hard. The escort felt ashamed for ever doubting him, but Jin just laughed, saying he was only trying not to die. For a moment, a genuine smile touched his lips as he admitted this was just how he'd always been. But then, without warning, his body gave out, and he collapsed to the ground in front of his shocked men. Suddenly, his escorts leaped to their feet, swords drawn, demanding to know who dares ambush them so dishonorably. A chorus of mocking laughter answers them as the bandits emerge from the trees, finding the appeal to ethics hilarious. The grim reality of their situation sets in. They're completely surrounded, hopelessly outnumbered. Their leader steps forward, a brute with a massive axe, introducing himself as Mok Gu Sam of the Green Tiger Fort. One of the escorts freezes, his blood running cold at the mention of that infamous name. He quickly turns to Jin, whispering for him to take a horse and run the moment fighting starts. They can't win this. This isn't just some rabble. Mok Gu Sam is a true martial artist, a properly trained master of kung fu. Trying to de-escalate, the head escort offers a formal greeting, hoping a show of respect might save them. He even offers to pay a toll, anything to avoid a fight. They know they'll lose. But Mok Gu Sam just grins, his toll far worse than money. He demands they strip naked and leave everything behind. The bandits cackle, making disgusting jokes as Jin's escort desperately urges his young master to escape. But rather than run, Jin puffs out his chest and steps forward, indignant. How dare they? He announces his identity as the third son of the Seonu household, expecting the name alone to make them grovel. Mok Gu Sam just gives him a tired, unimpressed look. The son of a major clan out here? Yeah, right. Standing defiantly, Jin calls their demands absurd, completely ignoring the sheer terror on his retainers' faces. He seems to think this is all a big misunderstanding, a accusing the bandit of trying to deceive him. To prove his lofty status, he pulls out a large, ornate bronze token, the very symbol of his family. The bandit leader's eyes glint with interest. He orders Jin to throw the token to him so he can verify it. Jin's escort freezes. Sure, it's a trap, but Sam warns them hell attack if they don't comply. So, Jin nervously agrees to throw it, but naively pleads with the bandit to look at it and give it right back. With a flick of his wrist, he sends the bronze token spinning through the air. The bandit leader snatches it with a confident grin, ready to appraise his prize. But the inscription is an In's name? In that moment of confusion, Jin explodes forward. He wasn't throwing proof, he was throwing a weapon, slamming the sharpened token into the man's chest. Sam stares down in disbelief, a choked gasp escaping his lips. His men can only cry out as they see their boss suddenly impaled. They realize their fatal mistake, this was an ambush, and they'd fallen for it completely. Unfazed by their cries, Jin calmly reaches for the hilt of his sword. As the first bandit charges, he's met with a swift, brutal slash. With a firm grip on his blade, the young master prepares to dismantle the rest of them. His blade becomes a blur, a dance of death that carves through the bandits' ranks. He spins through them, a whirlwind of steel, as men fall screaming about the ambush. Just then, his clan's escorts crash through the trees, roaring their support for the young master. The bandits' morale shatters. They scream for everyone to run, to escape the butcher. As they scatter, Jin feels a deep sense of satisfaction washing over him. His grip tightens on his bloodied sword. This feeling is what his body and soul have craved. A serene, almost chilling smile crosses his face as he rejoices in the familiar chaos of battle. But the moment the adrenaline fades, his body gives out, and he collapses to the ground, utterly spent. One of his men stares in disbelief, wondering aloud if his master is some old, reincarnated warrior. Jin just laughs it off, retorting that if he were, a small skirmish like this wouldn't have tired him out. Jang Gangsong, the veteran escort, admits that for someone so young, killing without hesitation is just not normal. He explains that seeing Jin lounging so comfortably among the dead was what made him think such a ridiculous thing. He even presses, asking if the haze on Jin's blade was sword energy, but the boy just shrugs it off, calling himself a mere second-rate warrior. The other escorts, however, recognize the prestigious Xian U 13 swords, a technique famous for its illusory forms. Jang can only chuckle in admiration. The swordsmanship of a renowned house was on a completely different level. He then turns the focus on himself, admitting he's ashamed to only have 20 years of inner power at his age. When Jin asks what method he used, Jang bashfully replies it was the 6 harmonies method, the only one he could obtain. Jin's mind flashes in surprise the 6 harmonies. Isn't that a third-rate technique you can buy at a street market? But then, a newfound respect blooms. To amass 20 years of power with such a basic manual was truly impressive. Shaking off the heavy mood, Jang rallies the other men, telling them it's time to get going. Jin can't help but see a reflection of his past self in the man's earnest struggle. After many more days of relentless travel, they finally set foot in the sprawling Eunan province. It's been a brutal 9 days on the road, and the whole group is just grateful to find a decent inn. To lift their spirits, Jin generously offers to buy everyone a round of drinks for their last night together. His escorts are overjoyed, murmuring that the young master is as generous as expected from a great house. Later, around the table, the men's conversation drifts to the future after this mission ends. One of them happily confirms he's heading home to his wife and child for good. The others tease him about a wanderer settling down, but it's all in good fun as Jin smiles along. But then, the innkeeper's voice rings out, announcing the arrival of a lovely young lady. As a blue-haired woman enters, one of the men recognizes her, wondering if it's the same person from back then. And just like that, a woman with striking blue hair and a quiet demeanor steps into the room. Her gaze sweeps over the patrons, a silent and almost guarded presence. One of Jin's escorts leans in, whispering that he thinks he recognizes her from before. But Jin practically leaps up, a huge smile on his face as he recognizes Lady Chongyun. What a surprise to meet her here of all places. The entire table turns to look. He enthusiastically waves her over, insisting she join them for a drink. Without a word, she accepts the invitation, moving towards their table. Jin just laughs, a bit flustered, seeing she's already taken a seat before he could even finish. The men warmly welcome her, remarking what a coincidence it is to meet again so soon. But she cuts them off, suggesting they hold off on ordering food, she has something else to discuss. Jin's face slackens in disbelief as she calmly states her intention to volunteer for the front. His escorts are just as shocked, asking her to repeat what she just said. Chongyun remains silent, covering her mouth as the men press her for a reason. Jin can't believe it. The front is a place where even heroes are forced to go, and she wants to go alone? He asks her directly why she would ever volunteer for such a dangerous place. But instead of answering, she simply looks him over and remarks that he seems to have lost a lot of weight. Caught off guard, Jin laughs bashfully, admitting it's from all the training he did on the road. His men proudly chime in, boasting about their young master's relentless efforts. They all agree he's not just slimmer but has become quite the handsome man, much to Jin's delight. But amidst the praise, Chong quietly rises from her seat, saying she needs to step out. She walks out of the room without another word, leaving them all behind. Back at the table, Jin's men are all smiles, urging their young master to have the first drink. And Jin, feeling pretty good about himself, gladly accepts the honor. But outside, alone in the quiet night, Chong finally lets out a long-held breath. A quiet admission escapes her lips. She thought he was kind of cute. She remembers his chubby face, looking uncannily like her precious doll, Mandu. It wasn't just that. She recalls the strange martial arts move he showed, as if by chance. That, and everything she'd learned about his past, had deeply piqued her curiosity. Even his clumsy waddling gait and his pathetic stamina that made him collapse constantly. All of it made her realize she couldn't just leave him to be killed by the demonic cult. It was her duty, as the sole witness to his hidden cuteness, to protect him. That's why Shed followed him all this way, watching him laugh so freely. But with no reason to go to the front, and her family waiting, she decides that tomorrow she'll finally head back. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoes through the dark woods. She spins around, realizing the desperate cries for help are terrifyingly close. Rushing toward the sound, she calls out into the darkness. Her answer is a hulking brute bursting from the shadows, swinging a massive axe. She's stunned to see he has zero intention of defending himself. If He's going all in on offense, then she'll finish this with a single, decisive strike. Her sword slices clean through the brute's back but hits nothing but air. A new shadow materializes silently behind her. Her eyes widen in pure shock. It was a phantom. Before she can turn, a second enemy strikes from her blind spot. A searing pain rips through her shoulder as a demonic claw tears into her flesh. The impact sends her flying backwards, completely overwhelmed. She crashes to the ground, clutching her bleeding wound. What on earth is this power? It's unlike anything she's ever faced. The first attacker reappears, flexing bizarrely and calling her a pervert. But his mockery is cut short as he's suddenly blasted away, screaming through the air. Seeing an opening, Chong recovers and unleashes a powerful slash of her own. But her brilliant blue energy wave collides with this new demonic brute. Impossible. Her attack did absolutely nothing to him. Suddenly, a new voice rings out from the side, demanding to know who this monster is. It's one of the bandits, charging in recklessly as Chong screams for him to stop. The man's blade strikes true and shatters against the brawler's iron-hard skin. His eyes go wide with pure terror, realizing the fatal mistake he's just made. As the foolish bandit is swatted aside, Chong seizes the momentary distraction, but her desperate strike is stopped cold, caught in the monster's bare hands. He grips her blade without a scratch, her sword utterly neutralized by his raw power. He flashes a monstrous grin, admiring the blade he's so easily caught. Chong can only stare back in absolute frozen terror. With a flick of his wrist, he shatters her guard and sends a devastating punch right into her gut. She's launched backwards, a brutal arc of force sending her flying through the air. Her companions rush to her side, screaming her name, but their attention is split between their fallen lady and the fresh corpse of the man who tried to intervene. Her young master frantically orders everyone inside the inn they can't fight this thing out in the open. But it's too late. The demonic brawler is already charging, closing the distance in an instant. Just as the monster attacks, her companion yanks her out of the path of destruction. His fist smashes into its target with a sickening, explosive impact. Jin screams for everyone to retreat, a flicker of recognition and terror in his eyes. Chong hits the dirt, rattled and bruised from the force of the last blow. Before she can recover, the demonic brawler stomps down right beside her. Her eyes widen in pure, unadulterated fear, completely frozen. The monster unleashes another devastating swipe, but Jin throws himself in front of her. A wild, guttural laugh tears from the brawler's throat, clearly enjoying the slaughter. Jin desperately clamps a hand over her mouth, pleading with his eyes for her to stay silent. The hulking fiend looms over them, scanning the darkness as if searching for a sound. Then, a strange detail clicks in Jin's mind. The monster's eyes have been closed this whole time. The chilling realization dawns on Chong their unstoppable pursuer is blind. Holding his breath, Jin shields the petrified Chong as the blind monster hovers just inches away. A grotesque, blood-stained grin spreads across the brawler's face. His found a new target. Suddenly, he pivots and lunges away, and a horrifying thought strikes Jin. He's heading for the inn. Inside, it's a scene of pure carnage as the Green Tiger Fort bandits are getting absolutely annihilated. Bodies and broken furniture litter the floor, the sounds of slaughter echoing through the building. Jin and Chong-yun can only watch from the doorway, horrified by the brutal display. The demonic brawler moves with terrifying speed, grabbing another screaming bandit from the crowd. The man's sword is already broken, a useless piece of metal against the monster's iron grip. With a final, desperate plea, his last line of defense shatters into splinters. The brawler looms over him, making a silent, brutal promise. No one here is leaving alive. But then, the brawler's assault suddenly falters as a wave of psychic feedback washes over him. The mental attack hits Jin full force, sending him into a screaming, blind panic. He desperately scrambles for anything he can get his hands on. In a fit of pure terror, he starts wildly throwing furniture around the inn. The brawler's head seems to warp as his psychic command echoes. He wants silence. The entire room is caught in his mental assault, freezing everyone in their tracks. But through the overwhelming fear, a flicker of defiance returns to Jin's eyes. He grabs hold of a small stool, his panic replaced by cold purpose. With a determined shout, he hurls it straight at the monster's head. The brawler turns, his concentration finally broken, annoyed by the boy's interruption. Jin's escorts are losing their minds, desperately trying to muffle any sound. One of them is practically suffocating under his companion's hand, sheer terror in his eyes. As Jin scrambles, he realizes he needs another distraction, anything to make a sound. But before he can move, a flash of blue energy erupts from the ceiling. A young woman crashes down, driving her blade deep into the brawler's shoulder. She uses the impact to launch herself away, leaving the monster staggering. Landing with perfect grace, she's already coiled for her next move. Her eyes are locked on her target, a cold and lethal focus. She becomes a whirlwind of blue light, her sword carving through the air around him. Then, she glances at Jin, yelling that this is his chance, he needs to say it now. Jin quickly turns, yelling a hushed warning to his companions. The monster hunts by sound alone, so don't make a single peep. But as he watches Chong-yun fight, a grim realization dawns. Just staying quiet won't be enough to survive this. If the creature can't find them by ear, it'll start using its nose, and Jin knows he has to end this before that happens. To do that, he needs a plan, and fast. He turns away from the fight, desperately looking for a solution. His eyes land on a bowl filled with strings of coins, a perfect distraction. With the brawler's entire focus on Chong-yun, he realizes this is his one and only chance to act. The blue-haired swordswoman's concentration is suddenly broken, her eyes widening in disbelief. She spotted Jin, who somehow crept right up behind the monster, a finger raised to his lips in a shh. He needs to draw its attention first. Winding up, he prepares to make some noise from a safe distance. Jin hurls the coins across the room, intending to create a cacophony from all directions to completely disorient the beast. With the brawler's attention elsewhere, Jin sees his chance to close the distance. The coins crash into the far wall, creating the exact cacophony he needed. Even the bandits are left stunned, their eyes wide with confusion at the sudden chaos. In that single moment of distraction, Jin is already on him, silently grabbing the creature from behind. But the sheer terror is palpable. He knows the slightest touch from its claws would rip him to shreds. Carefully, his hands glide up the monster's back, reaching for a vital point on its neck. And then, at the worst possible moment, his body betrays him with an impossibly loud hiccup. It's not just him either. The bandits are all hiccuping, caught in the same bizarre affliction. The monster's ear twitches, honing in on the sound that came from directly behind it. Its head whips around, and Jin finds himself face to face with the very beast he was trying to assassinate. Jin's face contorts in absolute, sweat-drenched horror. He's been made. The creature's head is fully turned, a grim, stitched-up visage locking onto its target. As its massive foot thuds against the floorboards, the bandits can only watch, paralyzed. But not everyone is frozen. Chong-yun whips out her sword, her expression one of shock. She leaps into action, blade glowing, rushing to aid Jin, who is still clinging to the beast. Jin realizes with dawning terror that there's nowhere left to retreat. In a last-ditch effort, he shoves his hands onto the monster's face. He pries open its eyelids, revealing crazed, bloodshot eyes staring into nothing. The gruesome sight makes Chong-yun cry out, a horrified screech filling the air. With a sickening crack, the monster slams its forehead directly into Jin's face. But Jin's panicked, screams errant just from fear. He spotted the one fatal flaw. A sudden realization strikes Chong-yun like a bolt of lightning. Her sword aura can't pierce its body, but the inside of its mouth, that's a different story. With a new plan, she ignites her blue aura, preparing to strike. She leaps into the fray, a blur of motion aimed at that single opening. Dodging a wild swing, she drives her sword forward with everything she has. The blade plunges deep into the monster's throat, a direct hit to its only weak point. But the beast's raw power is immense, and she struggles to push the blade any deeper. Just as her grip begins to falter, another pair of hands covers her own. It's Jin, adding his strength to hers for one final, desperate push. The creature's hand convulses, a final gurgle rattling from its pierced throat. With their combined strength, the blade has done its work, and the demonic brawler collapses, lifeless. The memory then shifts to a happier time, as Jin prepares to depart on a long journey. His loyal escorts, led by the warrior Jang Gangsong, wish him a safe and fortunate trip. Jin returns their warmth, shaking their hands and offering his own prayers for their well-being. But before he leaves, he reveals he has a parting gift for the three of them. He presents each man with a thick, hand-bound manual he had prepared. Jang Gangsong opens it, confused, as Jin explains it's a cultivation technique far superior to their clan's method. The warrior's jaw drops in shock. This is the legendary Boan mind method, a clan secret he can't possibly accept. Jin simply smiles, telling them he even included a few sword techniques, a small token of his deep appreciation. He reflects on the Boan mind method, the very same technique he himself received in his past life. It was the art that took a man with almost no internal energy and made him a supreme warrior in under a decade. Jang Gangsong is floored, stammering, unable to comprehend why he would just give away such a treasure. But Jin just smiles, saying they've faced death together, and what's a small gift between friends? The warrior and his men are left speechless, clutching the manuals with a newfound unbreakable loyalty. With his gift delivered, Jin turns to finally begin his journey. He leaves them with a parting wish, to meet again as first-rate warriors, a promise they swear to fulfill. Later, as he walks with Chong Yun, she can't help but call him peculiar for his generosity. Jin just gives a wry smile, cheekily noting that it wasn't a Xionu family secret, so what's the harm? But his tone quickly turns serious, questioning if she's truly ready for the front lines, a place where she could easily die. But Chong Yun is unwavering, explaining she's already made up her mind. She paints a grim picture of the front lines, where countless warriors are already fighting and dying against demonic foes. Grabbing Jin's robes, she declares that turning back would be a betrayal of everything she was taught as a martial artist. She looks him dead in the eye, challenging him. Does he see her as a woman needing protection, or as a warrior? The question hits Jin hard, and he clenches his fist, realizing he'd completely misjudged her. With a formal bow, he offers his sincerest apology, admitting he underestimated her unyielding conviction. Chong Yun accepts with a warm smile, impressed by how quickly he can admit his own faults. Jin just gives a small, knowing smile back, a new level of respect forged between them. And with that, the scene shifts to the brutal reality they spoke of. The Eunan front against the blood demon cult. A cry rings out as a young warrior is ruthlessly stabbed through the back, a horrifying welcome to the battlefield. The killer sneers at the warrior trying to protect his companion, taunting him for daring to look away. It's a full-blown ambush, with the infamous Sangsal Chilhyung of the blood demon cult emerging from the shadows. The leader, Jimak, grabs a young woman, cruelly asking if the dead man was her lover. His brother, Guyojil, joins in on the fun, putting a sickle to her throat with a lecherous grin. But just as they revel in their cruelty, a bright red signal flare erupts into the sky. A female warrior from another group had fired it, a silent declaration that this ambush was over. One of the cultists grumbles, realizing the signal means those annoying pests will be swarming them soon. With a shout to grab one more hostage, the cultists begin to leap away through the trees. But the warrior leader is ready, ordering her squad to immediately form a defensive line. One of the cultists crashes into their formation, his attack so powerful it shatters a defender's guard instantly. Her fellow warriors scream for her to just hold on, their captain is on his way. But her blade can't take the strain, shattering into pieces with a sharp crack. The cultist leader, Jimak, lets out a wicked laugh, mocking their pathetic attempt at a defense. All across the clearing, the female warrior squad is being systematically dismantled. The leader watches in horror, her reinforcements proving to be no match for these monsters. But then, Jimak's smug expression freezes as a sound from above catches his attention. A figure descends from the treetops, a blade flashing in the sunlight as he dives into the fray. It's Ma Yugium, the sword eagle of Mount Diankang, captain of the 4th Squad. The women erupt in cheers, their despair instantly replaced with triumphant relief. "The captain is here!" Jimak snarls, recognizing the infamous sword eagle, and tells his brother he'll handle this newcomer himself. His barefoot underling, however, decides to test the waters first, lunging forward with his twin sickles. The cultist unleashes a furious whirlwind of purple energy, aiming to shred the newcomer. But Ma Yu-Gyom meets his wild assault with perfect, unflinching calm. A piercing clang rings out as steel meets steel, the force of the impact stopping the cultist in his tracks. Even Gmak, watching from the side, can't hide his surprise at the captain's sheer skill. This isn't a stalemate. Ma Yugyam's blade effortlessly overpowers the clumsy sickles. A powerful follow-up strike sends the barefoot fighter tumbling through the air. He skids to a halt, carving grooves into the dirt, disbelief written all over his face. But before Gmak can even process this, the warrior leader shouts a desperate warning. Someone else is here. And there, perched gracefully on a branch, is Tang Yo-won of the fearsome Tang clan. Her arrival sends a ripple through the battlefield, her presence undeniable. Meanwhile, Ma Yu-gyom continues his relentless assault on the barefoot cultist. Their weapons clash in a furious exchange of blows, but the captain's refined swordsmanship easily overwhelms the crude fighter. Seeing this, Gmak barks out new orders. He'll take the captive, the rest are to deal with the new girl. The grunts eagerly swarm her, thinking she's just another easy prize. But to their surprise, she immediately turns tail and flees into the woods. They give chase, convinced they have her on the run. A sly smirk plays on her lips. They've fallen for it, hook, line, and sinker. She abruptly stops, pivots, and unleashes a blindingly fast counterattack on her pursuers. Her blade flashes through the woods, cutting down the demonic cultists one by one. Nearby, the vice-captain, Ma Yu-gyom, tends to his injured leader, promising to restore her blocked meridians. The enemy leaders, Gmak and Guyojul, realize they're not just fighting one skilled warrior. Reinforcements pour from the trees, and the hunters become the hunted. It was an ambush all along. Tang Yeo-eun lands with a wicked smile, mocking the demonic path scum for their slow realization. She immediately engages Gmak, their blades clashing in a furious exchange. He's barely holding on when a subordinate screams a desperate warning and attack from above. Looming over them is another master, the 13th captain, Punyang. He descends like a hawk, unleashing a devastating crimson arc of sword energy. Guyojul can only watch in horror as the attack shatters his weapon and ends his life. And it's not just the leaders, even their subordinates are being hunted down in the woods. Suddenly, another master appears, effortlessly slicing through the demonic cultists with a bored expression. He sighs, annoyed that they had the audacity to wake him from a perfectly good dream. Gmak's heart sinks. The first squad captain, Han Gyo-seong, the Chungpung sword dragon himself, is here. His subordinate screams at him to run, and Gmak, seeing no other choice, decides to flee. But Tang Yo-eun isn't about to let him get away that easily. With a flick of her wrist, she sends a projectile flying straight for the escaping leader. It sinks into his arm, but he grits his teeth through the pain, vowing to get his revenge. He disappears into the trees, with the rest of the squad in hot pursuit. Han Gyo-seong and Pungyang stand back, watching the chaos unfold, the battle already decided. Another warrior, Jongrang, lies dead on the ground as the fourth captain cries out his name in anguish. Just then, Seol-pung arrives, but the fourth captain's grief has already curdled into rage. He grabs the newcomer, demanding to know why the gale-flying dragon is only showing up now. If he'd been here sooner, they could have taken down at least one of the 7 fiends, maybe even all of them. Seol-pung can only apologize, his face grim as he explains that his own squad was ambushed. But an apology means nothing. The fourth captain shoves him back, spitting that a stray like him never deserved his rank. That's the last straw for Seol-pung's subordinates, who step forward to defend their captain's honor. His female squadmate explains they were facing 5 lesser ghouls when a major ghoul suddenly attacked, killing 2 of their own. A major ghoul, the most dangerous kind, a demon that feasts on human essence to grow its power. She reminds him of the Iron Rule. These monsters grow stronger over time and must be killed on sight, a rule he knows all too well. The fourth captain just scoffs at their story and walks off, completely unmoved by their losses. But Seol-pung's subordinate isn't having it, grabbing the man and demanding he apologize to her captain. Seol-pung quickly steps in, telling her that's enough. The captain is mourning his own men, after all. He waves it off with a tired smile, insisting he's fine and that they should just let it go. Another squadmate, however, calls him out, claiming his softness is precisely why others disrespect their unit. Seol-pung can only laugh awkwardly, knowing she's right when she says it'll make things harder for them all. Thankfully, Ma Yu-gyom approaches to apologize on his captain's behalf, and Seol-pung graciously accepts. Nearby, 2 other officers observe the scene, one mentioning that they're expecting new recruits today. The senior officer is skeptical, remarking that it will be a long time before any newcomers can pull their weight. And as if on cue, a lone figure arrives, hoping he'll be able to survive long enough to be useful. This is the Eunan anti-blood demon cult front, the 2nd headquarters. Jin is escorted into a waiting room, told the vice commander will see them soon. He notes that, besides Chong Yon, It seems the other young lady is the only other recruit. Some things never change. Chong Yun approaches him, quietly asking if the 13th squad is so young because all the veterans died. Jin smiles wryly, explaining it's not just them. The whole Flying Dragon Corps is getting younger and younger. He remembers from his past life that their squad was the youngest by a long shot. The only veterans were the commander and vice commander, a fact that shocks Chongyun to her core. The other recruit, Du Dang, overhears and asks why experienced warriors don't just volunteer for the position. Jin's expression turns grim as he explains the brutal truth. There's no profit, and certainly no fame. Everything that happens on the front lines is a secret. Your achievements and your death are meaningless to the outside world. Just then, an old man clears his throat, demanding their attention. He introduces himself as Hien Yongbo, the vice commander of the 13th squad. Jin can't help but smirk. He knows this guy, and he's never been happy to see him. But before he can even greet him, Du Dang asks if he's famous, because she's never heard of him. The vice commander gets a tick in his eye, muttering that she must lack knowledge of the secret masters. She presses him with a sharp smile, asking if that means he's at the peak level. He can barely contain his irritation, his face twitching with barely suppressed rage. Jin has to cover his mouth to hide his laughter. This woman went straight for his weakness. Flustered, the old man quickly changes the subject, saying they'll now assign squads. He glances down at his papers, his eyes landing on one name, Seonu Jin. A sly grin crosses the vice commander's face as he recognizes the Seonu family name. But he moves on, his expression souring as he reads the next name, daughter of one of the Guizhou Four Masters. Dudang's eyes narrow. She recognizes that name as belonging to the evil faction. Jin can't help but wonder why someone from an enemy faction would volunteer for this suicide mission. The vice commander then lands on Chong Yan's name, noting her school and parents are listed as undisclosed. Jin finds this suspicious. He recalls the Juge family's daughter treating her with a familiarity that belies her unknown status. Chong Yun simply confirms her name, offering no further explanation. That's the last straw for the old man, who snaps that people with unclear identities can't join the front lines. Jin scoffs internally, thinking this rule is a joke when the vice commander doesn't even know Captain Seolpung's real identity. Livid, the officer declares that in his 13th squad, such secrecy is absolutely forbidden. The officer gives Chong Yun an ultimatum: reveal her identity, or get out of his corps. But before she can even react, Jin steps in, casually name-dropping the prestigious Juge family. He explains that Cheong Yun is friends with the precious daughter of the Martial Alliance's grand strategist. The old man sputters in disbelief, asking why a noble lady would ever come to the front lines. Jin just smiles, vaguely suggesting it might be a secret mission from the top brass. That's all it takes for Hyeon Youngbo to break into a cold sweat, realizing Hez in way over his head. With the interrogation over, they're finally led to the 7th Squad's barracks. A wave of nostalgia hits Jin. The place looks exactly as it does in his memories. So much happened here over the last 7 years, a whirlwind of both happy and tragic moments. He prays he won't get stuck in the 4th Squad, only to realize they're all assigned to the 7th. The 4th captain gives a friendly warning, knowing some squad members love to haze newcomers. And he was right. Jin's memory flashes back to the immediate venom he faced. They called him the disgrace of his family, an unlucky pig who shouldn't even be there. He remembers walking away, utterly miserable and ostracized by everyone. But this time is different. He strides forward, the weight of the past fueling his steps. The captain throws open the doors, and all eyes in the 7th Squad turn to the entrance. A brawny man grins, impressed by Jin's build, while his sly companion observes the scene. But just as expected, the same old faces from his nightmares are there, sneering. One of them scoffs, wondering what kind of trash the captain dragged in this time. Jin calmly takes it in, a small smile on his face. Compared to the past, this is nothing. The captain makes the introduction, presenting the 3rd son of the prestigious Seonu family. That name immediately gets a reaction from the squad, but it's not one of respect. The insults start flying, calling him the family's disgrace, a pig who got beaten by his own sibling. Their leader gets right in Jin's face, sneering that he should fatten back up to be better demon bait. Even the brawny and sly members of the squad are taken aback by the blatant hostility. But instead of humiliation, Jin simply offers a calm, almost serene smile. He then confidently closes the distance, offering a handshake and calling the bully out by his full name. The bully stammers, completely baffled, as Jin confirms he knows him well, but first, they're going to fight. Not waiting for an answer, he seizes the man's arm and yanks him forward with shocking force. A solid crack echoes as Jin's fist connects squarely with the bully's stunned face. The punch sends a shockwave through the bully's body, but Jin is far from finished. He twists the man's wrist, the sound of snapping bone echoing in the stunned silence. Using his own momentum against him, Jin effortlessly spins the larger man around. He brings his foot down with a sickening crunch, shattering his ankle completely. The bully can only stammer, asking what he's doing, his face a mask of pure shock and pain. With a cheerful, almost unhinged smile, Jin reminds him of his own words. Wasn't he the one who called him a cripple? The other two lackeys can only watch, their earlier smugness evaporating into disbelief and fear. Jin glances their way, calmly wondering if he should fairly beat them up too, just to make the lesson stick. But before he can decide, the sound of footsteps announces an unwelcome interruption. A stern voice cuts through the tension, and Jin's eyes narrow. He recognizes that voice. A smile plays on Jin's lips, so the boss has finally decided to show his face. An imposing figure with green hair glares down, demanding to know what the commotion is about. He towers over Jin, his expression dripping with disdain for this entire situation. His voice is cold and sharp as he repeats the question, wanting to know what exactly Jin thinks he's doing. Perfect, Jin thinks to himself. The ringleader of the bullies has made his appearance. Without a hint of fear, Jin brings his hands together in a formal martial arts greeting. He politely introduces himself as Sion Ujin, newly assigned to Squad 7 as of today. He gestures to the groaning man on the floor, explaining how these kind souls were just calling him pig and trash, so he decided to return the favor. The squad leader's face hardens. He proudly announces himself as Ju Taekyung of the Jomchang sect. Ah, Jin realizes. A man with pride in his heritage, surely he wouldn't stoop to siding with these childish thugs. Jin knows this man well. Ju Taekyung, the so-called swordfly, whose pride is as vast as his sect's reputation. In Jin's memory, this man was nothing but a cancer in the squad, a petty tyrant leading his pack of fools. His fist clenches. Because of this bastard, his first love died a needless death, and he will not let history repeat itself. But Jin is cautious. Taekyung is a mid-tier elite. A direct fight right now would be reckless. Hell bide his time. One of Taekyung's men pipes up, mentioning that 2 new female recruits also joined today. The squad leader's face twists in irritation, clearly annoyed by this whole situation. Jin sees his opening and turns to face him, a slow, calculated smile forming on his lips. He asks if he has the honor of addressing the senior brother Ju Taekyung, the legendary swordfly he's heard so much about. The air grows cold. Taekyung's hand falls to the hilt of his sword as he demands to know what Jin just called him. But Jin just beams, feigning ignorance and repeating the title, innocently asking if that's not what everyone calls him. Taekyung's face twists with rage, hissing that Jin's poor homework is about to earn him a shallow grave. Jin feigns terror as another man, Seol Pung, steps in, trying to restrain the fuming warrior from the Jomchang sect. Seol Pung smoothly positions himself between them, laughing it off and telling Taekyung to let it go since the kid is new. But his eyes hold a sharp, calculated glint, a silent warning beneath the friendly facade. He tells Taekyung that if he doesn't drop that sword, he's about to cross a line he'll regret. Taekyung is furious, demanding to know if Seol Pung will really stop him from punishing a second rank for deceiving a first rank. Without missing a beat, Jin turns and offers a cheerful, exaggerated apology to his chief, Seol Pung. He explains he was just teaching some rude underlings a lesson, assuming a great warrior like Taekyung wouldn't care about such trifles. The rest of the squad erupts in laughter, gleefully welcoming the worm who just crawled into their barracks. Jin then turns his cheerful mockery onto Taekyung, noting that while the chief is out of reach, he could probably surpass Taekyung himself in a month or two. The air instantly freezes. Taekyung's face contorts with rage, and he demands to know if the rookie can actually back up those words. But Jin just keeps smiling that infuriating smile, innocently asking what Taekyung would do if he could. Taekyung sets the terms with cold fury. 3 months, then a fight to the death. His life will be the price for his arrogance. And if he wins? Jin asks with a grin. Taekyung scoffs, saying he'd simply die, as if the thought of losing is utterly absurd. Jin waves his hands dismissively, putting on a show of concern. He can't let a valuable comrade die, now can he? Instead, he offers his own stake, with Seol Pung quietly observing. If he wins, Taekyung will treat him as his elder brother. The insult lands like a hammer blow, and Taekyung's teeth grind together in pure, unadulterated fury. But through his rage, he accepts. Fine, he snarls. Hell grant the little worm's wish before he ends him. Taekyung storms off, spitting that the fool brought this upon himself, and questioning why Seol Pung didn't stop him. He leans in close, snarling a final promise to make Jin regret this day. But our hero just smirks back, unbothered. As Taekyung leaves, a few of his lackeys from the 7th squad eagerly scramble to follow him out. The moment the door closes, 2 other squad members erupt in laughter, finding the whole confrontation incredibly satisfying. One of them, a sly-looking man, throws his arm around Jin, declaring that he's already starting to admire him. And it's no wonder this is Bisa Young, whose sect was destroyed by the very cult Taekyung was connected to. The brawny, shirtless man chimes in too, saying he knew from the start that he and Jin would get along. A wave of recognition washes over Jin. These men, they're Bisa Young and Baejongwan, his comrades from his past life. Seeing them alive and by his side again, a quiet, unbreakable vow forms in his heart. This time, he won't let them die. The squad chief pulls Jin aside, questioning if he's sure about provoking Taekyung. But Jin just grins, practically begging the chief to train him to his absolute limit. The chief seems amused by this audacity, agreeing to drop the formalities. With a predatory smile, he accepts the challenge, promising to push Jin until he begs to die. Bisa Young immediately panics, telling Jin that this kind of training isn't for mortals like them. Jin just smiles to himself, thinking he's already survived it once, and this time, they're all coming with him. He turns to his terrified comrade, playfully mocking his lack of confidence. Absolutely triggered, Bisa Young puffs out his chest, insisting he fears nothing in this world. And just like that, with his pride on the line, he strikes a pose and declares he'll join the hellish training too. Another trainee overhears the commotion, laughing that he'd love to join, but he has his own grand dream to pursue. A dream of crushing evil cultists with the ultimate hard-body training, so he can't waste time on anything else. Jin's eyes light up immediately. An iron body to crush cultists? He absolutely has to learn that. The trainee is completely taken aback. Wait, he's actually serious about this? The squad chief smirks, recalling Jin said something similar about wanting to test whose skin was tougher than a cultist's. Jin grabs the man, enthusiastically confirming it, though admitting it was just an excuse for his real plan. His true goal is to use that hardened body to fly like a meteor and smash into his enemies with a full-body tackle. Fly like a cannonball and shatter cultists into pieces? The trainee can't help but picture the glorious image. Jin is already lost in his own hype, imagining the world praising him with titles like Iron God Meteor. The trainee is completely starstruck, his mind racing with even cooler names for the technique. Jin just smiles to himself, knowing his new disciple is officially hooked. The very next day, the small group heads deep into the forest to begin their special training. One of the others, Bisa Young, loudly proclaims that for a disciple like him, this is child's play. Jin agrees with a smug grin, claiming that for someone who's endured it before, it's nothing. With a burst of confidence, he leaps into the air, shouting that he'll go first. But his foot slips on the very first branch, sending him plummeting with a pained yelp. The hard-body trainee looks down in a panic, calling out Jin's name after the loud thud. Sprawled on the forest floor, Jin has a sudden painful realization he forgot he isn't fat anymore. A month later, dawn breaks over the forest canopy. For Bisa Young, the very disciple who mocked Jin, his own past is a constant, suffocating weight. He remembers fleeing his fallen sect, only to end up on the front lines under a man he despised. He hadn't expected an apology, knowing a second-rate warrior like himself was beneath a first-rate swordsman. All he wanted was some sign of guilt, but all he received from Ju Taegyong was a smug, dismissive sneer. The man then twisted the knife, asking if he was proud his elders died from their own greedy ambition. That insult was the final straw, and Bisa Young charged forward in a blind, desperate rage. But it was useless. He was easily overpowered, and life continued with him stuck in the background. The truth was, his sect's internal cultivation method was lost, forever capping his potential. His scarred hands were a testament to his powerless rage. He would rather die than be pitied as a weakling. He was just drifting along with no real goal, stuck in a rut. Then one day, a seemingly crazy new guy entered the 7th squad. This recruit, who barely looked like a martial artist, clashed with Ju Taegyong from day one. For Bisa Young, watching someone finally stand up to that arrogant prick was a breath of fresh air. So, caught up in the moment, he let himself get roped into the newcomer's training. But the very next day, he realized he'd made a terrible, terrible mistake. He could only curse his own stupidity for willingly walking into this hell. The captain's training was relentless. Even the squad's fastest runner, who prided himself on his lightness skills, found he could barely keep up after a month of this. And yet, though every muscle screamed, Bisa Young refused to fall behind. He couldn't give up. A familiar, mocking voice cuts through the forest, calling out Sa Young's name. It's the 4th captain, effortlessly running ahead and taunting him for getting frustrated so quickly. Already a huge distance away, he laughs, sarcastically suggesting Sa Young might catch up soon. Bisa Young seethes. He refuses to lose to this guy. They're the same rank, and he's even carrying more weight. The captain, however, remembers that Sa Young had never even learned a proper movement technique before this. He recalls the man approaching him just 3 days into the training, desperate for guidance. In exchange for the secret technique, Sa-young had offered a valuable cultivation method, being the first to truly recognize its worth. So, with his boots literally tearing apart under the strain, Sa-young pushes forward with renewed fire in his eyes, vowing he will not be beaten by that bastard. But as Dudang struggles to catch her breath, it's clear the horror is just beginning. This sprint is only the warm-up. After eating, the real work begins, with Jin utterly gassed while his peers push through their own training. Evenings are spent sparring, honing their combat skills against one another in grueling matches. The next day, the cycle of pain repeats, leaving Jin and another trainee completely wiped out. He stumbles back to the resting spot, explaining to the squad chief he was late because he added even more weight. The fourth captain overhears this, praising his incredible dedication to self-improvement. Jin gets flustered, laughing it off and insisting his efforts are nothing compared to a master like her. But his mind drifts back to his past life, to young lady Na Xiaoyu, the one who accepted him when he was an outcast. He remembers falling for her then, a love he never confessed before she tragically died. Now, settling into his meditation, Jin feels a quiet confidence. Everything is proceeding smoothly. Just as he hoped, every member of the squad is laser-focused on their training, inspired by the masters among them. Even the competitive young lady Chong Yun surprised everyone by asking to join the external training. Jin reflects on his own progress, learning his clan's ultimate arts again. His growth is incomparable to his past life. He notes that Sa-young is also thriving, the new cultivation method giving him wings. And Bei Zhongguan is finally learning to balance his training, no longer obsessed with only external arts. Jin had fed him a story about the Diamond Indestructible sect, to train both his body and spirit. Of course, he smirks to himself. There's no such thing. It's just a Shaolin technique he cleverly repackaged. But hey, as long as the motivation is there and the results are good, who's to complain? 2 months have now passed, and as the squad meditates, a dark thought crosses Jin's mind. A major incident is coming. He remembers it all too clearly around this time. A sudden wave of 50 liver ghosts appeared from nowhere. The Flying Dragon Corps had never faced such numbers, and the result was a catastrophe that wiped out an entire squad. Jin remembers it vividly. That one disaster was the tipping point that sent the entire front into a downward spiral. And yet, with his current low rank and unproven skills, he's trapped, unable to warn anyone of the future. He can only sit and seethe in frustration, knowing the catastrophe is just around the corner. Elsewhere, the 5th Squad is on patrol, led by their spirited captain, Chiang Ho. He dashes through the woods, complaining to himself about his ridiculous popularity out here. Unfortunately for him, his admirers are a swarm of mosquitoes, and he wishes they were beautiful women instead. The buzzing pests get closer and closer, driving him absolutely mad. Finally having enough, he whips out his sword in a furious blur of motion. A flurry of slices later, the only thing left in the air is a rain of perfectly diced insects. His squad erupts in awe, praising his sword rain technique, while their captain just smugly brushes it off as a basic skill. But his squad quickly brings him back to earth, pondering how a genius like the 1st Squad captain, Han Gyo-seong, must operate. They even mock their own captain's title, the Swift Chaos Monkey, wondering how a monkey could ever compare to the legendary Clear Wind Dragon. Cheong Ho fumes, insisting that Han Gyo-seong isn't human for reaching peak level in his 20s, while his squad just laughs at his tantrum. The teasing continues as they suggest he try dating his vice captain, only for the idea to be shot down, leaving him flustered and rejected. But the laughter dies in an instant as Chong Ho's eyes widen, his sharp senses picking up on something unnatural. He silences his squad with a single command, dropping into a low stance as the playful atmosphere evaporates. Something is coming, he warns them. And it's not just one or two, he orders everyone into a defensive formation. From their vantage point, they see the rustling in the tall grass below, a sound that grows louder and more numerous by the second. Then, from the darkness, a horde of demonic ghouls with glowing red eyes and snarling faces emerges, charging right for them. With no time to think, Chong Ho draws his blade and screams for the vice captain to send the signal for reinforcements, now. Chong Ho leaps into the fray, his blade flashing, but the ghouls are like mist. His sword passes right through them, and a cold dread washes over him. These things, they aren't physical. Overwhelmed and swarmed, he can only scream in terror for everyone to retreat and run for their lives. But as he panics, his vice captain sends 3 signal flares into the sky, a clear warning that they're facing at least 3 mid-level demons. Elsewhere in the chaos, another squad member is locked in a deadly dance with one of the fiends. The narration explains that these ghost fiends are simple-minded, locking onto a single target with absolute focus. Knowing this, the warrior calmly draws its attention, preparing for a decisive counter. He sidesteps the lunge and drives his sword home, a clean and perfect strike. But his blade stops dead, caught in the ghoul's bare, unyielding hand. He's trapped, and he realizes his mistake too late. The basic tactic is a two-man feint, not a solo duel. And just as he realizes his error, a teammate demonstrates the proper tactic. One draws the fiend's attention, while the other moves in from the blind spot to land the decisive blow. But even this perfectly executed strike is stopped cold, the ghoul's hand clamping down on the blade. That's when the horrifying reality of their situation sinks in for the entire sixth team. For the first time, they are facing a greater number of ghost fiends than they have warriors. The 2-on-1 strategy is now inverted. They're each being forced to fight 2 or more ghouls alone. Chung-ho can only scream in desperation as the horde closes in on him. The entire formation has shattered into chaos, with desperate pleas for help echoing through the forest. His comrades are being caught, swarmed, and brutally torn to pieces. He screams for them to pull it together, to hold the line, but it's already far too late. And just like his fallen comrade, Chung-ho's blade is caught mid-swing. The ghoul's grip is like steel, its empty eyes staring straight through him. He's completely surrounded, with the rest of his team being slaughtered in the background. Realizing his sword is useless, he makes a split-second decision and lets it go. If a blade won't work, then his bare hands will have to do. He pivots, unleashing a ferocious punch with everything he has left. The blow lands square on the monster's chest with a sickening thud. Before it can even react, he follows up with a brutal strike to its jaw. He hammers away, refusing to back down against the overwhelming odds. The sudden, savage assault actually sends the ghouls stumbling back in confusion. But the brief moment of respite is over, and Chung-ho realizes the enemy numbers are simply too great. He grits his teeth, knowing he has to somehow, some way, create an opening to survive. Suddenly, 2 figures crash into the fray, shouting the names of their signature techniques. It's backup, landing directly between the desperate trainees and the monstrous horde. Na Xiaoyu's kick connects with brutal force, tearing a ghoul completely in half. She and her hulking partner land perfectly, not even breaking a sweat. They calmly turn to face the next wave of shadowy creatures rushing toward them. The muscular brawler snatches one of the ghouls right out of the air. He lets out a booming laugh, mocking how ridiculously light the monsters are. Chung-ho stares in utter disbelief. The 7th team just opened up a path for him to escape. Seeing his chance, Chung-ho screams for his battered squad to retreat immediately. He even warns the newly arrived Chong-yun to fall back. The enemy numbers are overwhelming, but Na Xiaoyu just calmly tells him not to worry, because she already has a plan in motion. With a wicked grin, she calls out to her senior brother, announcing that it's finally his turn. And somewhere else in the woods, a man slices open his own palm with a small blade. It's Bisa-young, cursing under his breath about being forced to use such a crazy tactic. The fresh scent of his blood instantly lures a demonic ghoul right to him. He meets its charge with a single, explosive palm strike that obliterates its head. This is the signal his own squad emerges from the shadows, launching a coordinated assault. Yet for every monster they cut down, more seem to rise from the darkness, their red eyes glowing with hunger. Bisa-young sprints through the forest, screaming Jin's name as a horde of ghouls chases him down. But from a safe distance, Chung-ho watches with a grin, knowing his senior is fast enough to pull it off. With the mid-level fiends lured away, he turns to his own team, ready to strike. Cracking his knuckles, he announces that he's taking the lead. He dashes forward, telling them to keep up as they charge into the remaining monsters. The scene flashes, a memory of a powerful swordsman from a time long past. This is what drives Seonu Jin, the clear memory of his past life, and the tragic end that befell him and all his comrades. Knowing what's to come, all he could do in this new life was push everyone, and himself, to the absolute limit. Because this time, unlike the last, he absolutely refused to give up. Ever since he got this second chance, he's pushed everyone relentlessly, day after day. And today, he can finally see the fruits of that labor. The small gap he created through sheer effort was enough to save his comrades. An incident that should have left only the team leader alive was overcome with minimal sacrifice. A few days later, the victorious squads make their way back. Bisa-young can't stop complaining, gagging that even his clothes reek of their training medicine now. Jin just smirks, listening to him whine that no one would ever want to train if they knew about the awful ointment. But he knows the truth. Their recent training sessions have been attracting quite a crowd. After all, hearing that he and Beijongguan smashed fiends with their bare bodies made their style seem legendary. Of course, once the onlookers actually try the brutal training themselves, most of them give up and run. Still, at least one person, Chung-ho, was brave enough to try, eagerly asking to join the intense regimen. His own squad members, however, immediately clamp a hand over his mouth, shutting down that idea instantly. Jin watches the whole display with a wry smirk, admitting to himself that their training isn't exactly a pleasant sight. Just then, a hush falls over the crowd as a procession of women arrives, led by the renowned Miss Dang. But all eyes quickly lock onto the woman walking behind her, the famous Tang Yuan. Her presence is so captivating it feels like she's the only source of light in the entire world. A man approaches Jin's group, remarking how he'd love for their own Na Xiaoyu to be the fairest of them all. But he concedes that to compete with beauties like Jegal Xiaoyul or Tang Yuan is a near impossible task. He formally introduces himself as Myung Sa-hyun, the vice leader of the third squad, finally getting to greet Jin. He confesses that he used to see their training as a waste of time, but their results have proven him completely wrong. Jin and his men accept the apology, laughing that it's just good Hez finally come to his senses. Myung Sa-hyun leans in conspiratorially, admitting he'd love to learn some of their training secrets. He whispers that his goddess, Tang Yuan, might not be too happy about that, just as her squad calls for him. With a sly grin, he boasts that she's far more possessive than she looks, and waves a quick goodbye. But as he walks away, Jin suddenly calls out, stopping Myung Sa-hyun in his tracks. For a moment, Jin struggles, a crucial warning on the tip of his tongue, but he trails off. He simply tells him to take care, and Myung Sa-hyun cheerfully agrees, hoping they'll train together soon. As he watches him go, Jin recalls everything he knows about this man, who openly serves the woman he loves. Since Tang Yuan is so unapproachable, it's Myung Sa-hyun who effectively leads the third squad. But Jin remembers the terrible truth. In his past life, this man was killed by that very same woman. The memory is a bloody one. Tang Yuan, her mind broken by the blood cult, was forced to kill Myung Sa-hyun herself. And after his death, she became the broken puppet of Ma Yu-gyom, the 10th squad leader, who drove her into despair. This is why Jin knows the truth: she was never the cold, perfect woman she appeared to be. Bisa-young, however, completely misreads the situation, asking if Jin has fallen for her and warning him off a futile love. Jin tries to explain that he just needs her help because steel spirits will appear soon, but his friend just scoffs. The loud declaration immediately catches the attention of everyone nearby, and a rumor is born. Xianu Jin has a crush on Miss Tang. He desperately tries to deny it, but the gossip has already taken on a life of its own, spreading through the trainees. Even Na Xiaoyu looks over, her expression thoughtful as she takes in the commotion. Jin is left completely flustered, unable to get a single word in to correct the massive misunderstanding. But just as the chaos peaks, the setting sun signals their next duty. It's time for the night patrol. The squad leader, Seol Peng, holds up a hand, bringing the patrol to a sudden halt. Night patrols are always tense. He senses a chaotic spirit lurking in the darkness. These demonic heads are a threat even to pinnacle masters, and one lunges from the shadows. But this squad is different. They have the Gale-flying dragon, who dispatches the beast with ease. With the situation handled, the team regroups. But Jin knows their leader has one crucial flaw. The female members of the squad shower him with praise, calling him cool and amazing. And just like that, the stoic warrior turns into a flustered mess, stammering before quickly running ahead. His squad mates can only chuckle. If not for his crippling fear of women, he'd be the perfect leader. Jin watches silently, his expression hardening as he remembers the tragedy that forced Seol Peng to overcome this fear in the past. He won't let that happen again, vowing to take care of the person responsible before history can repeat itself. And there he is, Ju Taegyong, the snake Jin plans to deal with, talking trash about Seol Peng's leadership. His friend Bisa-young approaches Jin, asking if he's really ready for their fight in 2 weeks. Jin just grins, playfully assuring him that he's trying his best, which only earns him a punch on the arm. But the others are more analytical, pointing out the real issue: his lack of inner chi needed to manifest sword chi. Even the female squad members chime in, noting that his mental understanding is top tier, but his chi cultivation is lagging far behind, making him a strange and unbalanced fighter. Bisa-young senses Jin has a plan and begs him to spill the secret, since it's just them listening. With a sly smile, Jin admits he has a little something up his sleeve, an elixir from his father. It would boost his chi by 10 years, but Seol Peng immediately realizes the catch: it must have a purity problem. Jin confirms his suspicion. The external chi would make up half his total power, a massive risk to his foundation. The complex talk of chi purity leaves Dudang and the others completely baffled. Bisa-young explains the danger: if external chi from an elixir exceeds half the total, chi deviation is almost certain. Jin just laughs, cheerfully confirming that this is the exact risk he's been putting off. His original plan was to first build a pure foundation with his ultimate primordial unity arts before touching it. But now, he feels his body can handle the influx, much to the shock of his companions. Seol Peng breaks the stunned silence, admitting with a grin he's never even had an elixir before. Dudang's eyes sparkle with surprise and relief, realizing She's in the same boat. A flustered Seol Peng brushes it off, saying they're all going to be busy for a while anyway. The conversation then shifts to the upcoming schedule. Jin's match, followed by a meeting between the Blood Demon and the Alliance. Seol Peng's expression darkens. He's fought on the front lines, and this high-profile meeting feels suspiciously out of place. He recalls the meeting in the 13th Corps, remembering how unsettlingly peaceful it all was. Elsewhere, another subordinate, Bi-Sa-Young, clicks his tongue in disgust, already sick of the thought of his vice-captain sucking up to the leadership. He complains to the others that they'll be stuck with cleaning duty, questioning why their corps was even chosen for this event. But Jin interjects, catching his attention by agreeing that the whole thing feels strange. Bi-Sa-Young explains the core martial arts principle. Absorbing too much external qi leads to deviation. So how do the demonic cult leaders survive? The question hits them like a ton of bricks. The others are stumped, and even Bi-Sa-Young realizes he's walking into a paradox. His mind flashes to the image of a cultist draining an elder's life force if their power comes from theft. Then by all logic, they shouldn't even be alive. The fundamental nature of their enemy is a contradiction. The scene shifts as Jin watches the arrogant Ju Taegyong practicing his spear forms with fierce intensity. With a sharp cry, the trainee lunges forward, completely absorbed in honing his own power. Ju Taegyong pushes himself to the limit, his spear technique cutting through the forest air with vicious focus. His lunges stopped cold by a single hand. His new mentor, Ma Yu-gyum, remarks on how much faster he's improving with a target. With a thin, predatory smile, Ma Yu-gyum praises his new student, claiming he could now be called upper first rate. Ju Taegyong respectfully thanks him, but the mentor isn't finished. He warns him not to be satisfied with simply winning. He must demonstrate overwhelming power, the kind that shows everyone the might of the Diankang sect. But as Ju Taegyong eagerly agrees, Ma Yu-gyum's expression hardens. This isn't just training, it's about making someone regret what they threw away. His mind seethes with rage. How dare that boy refuse the Diankang? How dare he refuse him? Oh, he will pay for this insult. Back inside, the other trainees are in an uproar, questioning if it's true the new recruits actually defeated a chaotic spirit. Bi-Sa-Young steps forward to deliver the glorious report, humbly stating that Chong Yun defeated the creature while he, a mere second-rate, was helpless. He points to a stunned Chong Yun, adding that it was actually Jin who bravely distracted the demon, saving his life in the process. Bi-Sa-Young continues, explaining he only followed Jin's instructions to strike the demon's mouth with sword qi. Na Xiaoyu immediately questions him how did he know chaotic spirits were weak to light. He just shrugs it off as lucky research. The squad chief, however, is deeply intrigued. A second-rate warrior who's never fought a demon, risking his life like that? Bi-Sa-Young's nervous laughter seems to convince the others he must have studied obsessively. A predatory smile forms on the squad chief's lips. Has decided this kid, despite his rank, is worth raising. But Bi-Sa-Young quickly clarifies that knowing a weakness is one thing. Having the guts to force its eyes open is another. Impressed, the squad chief turns to his captain, declaring he wants the kid for the 4th squad to fill their recent losses. To the shock of everyone in the room, Bi-Sa-Young shouts out a defiant "No!" The squad chief is stunned into silence, his generous offer thrown right back in his face. And Bi-Sa-Young immediately realizes his mistake, his face draining of all color. Did he really just refuse a squad chief? He whirls around, turning his back on the stunned squad chief. Instead, he addresses another leader in the room, Seol Peng, the gale-flying dragon. With a sudden burst of passion, he begs Seol Peng to let him join the 7th squad. Seol Peng is completely baffled, pointing to himself as if he's misheard. Bi-Sa-Young explains he's heard legends of Seol Peng's raw power, crushing demons with bare hands. The arrogant Ju Taegyong scoffs, insulted that someone would refuse his squad for the lowly 7th. Even Seol Peng is skeptical, asking why the 3rd son of the noble Seon-U clan would join a group of losers. The insult stings, and Bi-Sa-Young clenches his fist, his resolve hardening. He shouts that he doesn't care about status. He wants to learn to fight with his own body. A firm hand lands on his shoulder. Seol Peng is impressed, acknowledging his spirit. Seol Peng is ecstatic, grabbing Bi-Sa-Young's hand and promising to forge his body into a weapon. But elsewhere, the humiliated Ju Taegyong grits his teeth in pure, unadulterated rage. Just remembering the public rejection makes his blood boil with fury. He vents to Myung Sa-hyun, complaining that he should have used his influence to force the issue. Myung Sa-hyun's eyes glow red. As the son of the Diankang sect's leader, he agrees this insult cannot stand. He storms off, vowing to teach this upstart the true might of his sect. Ju Taegyong eagerly asks for permission to deliver the lesson himself. He smirks, thinking this is his chance. He has no intention of letting someone who insulted him live. But Myung Sahyun stops him with a surprising command. Do not kill or cripple him. He turns back, questioning if Ju Tae-gyung was really about to kill a comrade in their war against the blood cult. Caught, Ju Tae-gyung frantically backpedals, insisting he wasn't actually going to kill him. Myung Sahyun isn't in the mood for excuses, silencing the man with a crushing wave of pressure. He pins him with a glare, reminding the fool of their one true mission, reclaiming the mountain. For that cause, they must cooperate with anyone and everyone, and Seonu Jin is their comrade. He grabs Ju Tae-gyung, making it crystal clear. He knows he's a snake, but he better not be stupid. As his subordinate scurries off, Myung Sahyun can only click his tongue, utterly annoyed. Meanwhile, back with the 7th Squad, the atmosphere is decidedly less tense. One of the members determines their leader, Seol Pung, isn't mind-controlled, Hes just being his usual awkward self. His squad mates immediately start roasting him, joking that mind control might be the only way he'll ever get married. The jab hits Bi Sa-young a little too hard, who sputters that he just doesn't see the need to talk to girls. His squad mate, Na Seo-yu, just smirks, finding his tough guy act absolutely adorable. She calls him up next for the mind control check, and he boldly accepts the challenge. The whole squad gathers around, enjoying the show as she begins checking the male members. This procedure is no joke. They're all on edge after a member of the 10th Corps was recently charmed. Falling to the blood sex influence is a fate worse than death, forcing allies to execute their own comrades. And as Na So-yu knows all too well, a way to break that control still hasn't been found. She tells him to look her in the eyes, but all his prior confidence instantly vanishes. The others can't help but laugh as she teases him, asking where all that courage from earlier went. Even their leader, Seol Pung, joins in, noting that Bi Sa-young is just as awkward as he is. Blushing furiously, Bi Sa-young tries to save face, declaring that this proves he's not charmed, right? Na Seo-yu chuckles, deciding his complete inability to meet her gaze is proof enough that he's fine. He sputters in protest, but she just teases that it was only for a moment, as the rules of the check are laid out. This critical task falls to the female members, as they are believed to be more sensitive to changes in their comrades. With Bi Sa-young cleared, all eyes turn to the next candidate. It's Seonu Jin's turn. Jin is practically vibrating with confidence, thinking to himself that staring into her eyes will be a piece of cake. His squad mates cheer him on, eager to see if his bravado will last any longer than the last guy's. He steps up, thinking this is a rare opportunity to really observe her face up close. But as he looks, he gets completely lost in her gentle smile and her kind, healing gaze, and his brain immediately short-circuits, his entire face flushing a deep, furious red. The room erupts in laughter, mocking him for turning into a tomato before he could even properly make eye contact. The vice squad leader smirks, telling Jin she doesn't even need to look. His reaction says it all. She muses aloud that she didn't think anyone could have it worse than their own squad leader. Jin completely loses it, stammering that she has to check, that he wasn't, he was just. He's absolutely devastated, realizing he just blew his one perfect chance to stare at her face. But a teammate changes the subject, asking the vice leader if she managed to check Cheong-yun's eyes. The name triggers a memory for Jin, thinking about the quiet girl who is always with them. He realizes he's never once seen her full face, recalling she once told someone it was to hide a scar. But even then, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to her story. The vice leader suddenly chimes in, revealing that she actually has seen Chong-yun's face. And the reason she hides it? Well, it would cause a massive commotion if she didn't. Jin is left completely baffled by her cryptic comment. A commotion? What could she possibly mean? His mind drifts back to a similar time, a warning he received before a perilous mission. They were hunting a deadly spider spirit, one that grew stronger and smarter with every martial artist it consumed. Before the main squad departed, he'd asked Chong-yun and Du-dong about their plans. He sighs, the weight of his knowledge from a future that shouldn't exist pressing down on him. In his previous life, this was the exact time when one of their comrades met a brutal end, so he put on a gentle smile, urging the two girls not to wander off into the woods alone. Du-dong simply beamed, thanking him for his concern and promising they would be careful. Just then, his attention was stolen by a woman walking past, her presence immediately familiar. It was Mae Yo-kyung, the 4th Squad's vice leader, and a person he was watching very closely. He remembers her original fate, all too clearly slain by the spider spirit, a loss that drove another comrade to madness. Pushing the grim memory aside, he approaches Mae Yo-kyung and casually asks who she's looking for. She explains she's searching for one of their squad members, Sun Harang, who has seemed deeply troubled lately. Jin offers to keep an eye out, and with a brief thanks, the vice leader continues on her way. As she vanishes, The name finally clicks. Son Harang was the fiancé of Jung, a warrior lost to the twin scythe 7 misfortunes. He turns to his comrades to confirm, and the muscular man nods, explaining that she's been struggling ever since. It all happened right before Jin arrived. Her fiancé fell in that brutal battle, and they were apparently incredibly close. Such is the harsh reality of the front lines, a place where love is lost as easily as it's found. Jin can only offer a quiet, grim acknowledgement of the unfortunate story. But then, a cold dread washes over him as another memory surfaces. Someone named Chun went into the forest to comfort a squadmate and was ambushed and killed. And just like that, the pieces snap together in his mind with horrifying clarity. His comrades notice his sudden stillness, asking what's wrong, if his foresight is acting up again. But Jin's face is grim. He tells them there's no time to explain. They need to find Sun Harang now. Wasting no time, the three of them blast off into the forest, a blur of motion between the trees. One of his friends nervously asks if just the three of them are enough for whatever they might find. His other companion just scoffs, boasting they could handle anything and simply run if they can't. But Jin isn't listening, his voice echoing through the woods as he desperately calls out her name. He decides they should split up to cover more ground, keeping each other in sight. Then, a blood-curdling scream cuts through the air, freezing them in their tracks. All strategy is forgotten as Jin immediately charges toward the sound, his heart pounding. He arrives to a horrifying sight, a whole pack of cunning spirits swarming something on the ground. His muscular friend doesn't hesitate, launching himself into the fray with a powerful charge. Jin follows suit, his fists erupting with dark energy as he carves a path through the monsters. In moments, the creatures are dispatched, but their victory is hollow as they find the body of their friend. Jin's heart sinks. They were too late. Just a few moments faster and she might have lived. The three of them stand over her broken form, a grim silence falling over the clearing. But as he looks at her, Jin feels a creeping doubt. Could cunning spirits really have done this so quickly? He leans in closer, and his eyes widen in terror at what he sees. 2 distinct fang marks on her neck. His friend checks for a pulse, but Jin suddenly grabs him, his face a mask of panic. He yells at them that they have to leave now. The real predator, the spider spirit, is still nearby. But his warning comes too late. The predator is already here, perched silently on a branch above them. It's a horrifying, gaunt creature, its eyes wide with madness as a sickening grin spreads across its face. The sight sends a shiver down their spines. It's not just watching, it's toying with them. Then, the monster lets out a piercing, unholy shriek that echoes through the forest. His friend realizes with dawning horror that the scream was a trap, but Jin's mind is clear as he gives the only order that matters: run south. He begins the countdown, and the three of them immediately break into a desperate sprint. On 3, they pour every ounce of their strength into their legs, trying to escape the clearing. But the creature is already a blur of motion, launching itself from the tree. It soars through the air with terrifying speed, closing the distance in a single, monstrous leap. The friend glances back, his face a mask of pure terror. It's impossibly fast, and he screams, asking if they should split up to survive. Jin immediately rejects the idea. Splitting up means sacrificing one of them for the other 2, and he knows exactly who that one person would have to be. But before he can even argue, his muscular friend stops, telling them to run while he keeps the monsters at bay. He turns with a bright, fearless smile, pleading for them to survive in his stead. A wave of ice-cold dread washes over Jin. This is happening again. He remembers his past life seeing that same smile, hearing those same words as his friend sent him away. He grits his teeth, forcing the painful memories down. He has to stay logical. Now is not the time to break. The horde of cunning spirits is closing in fast. There's no way all 3 of them can make it out. A grim acceptance settles on his face. It's tragic, but it's inevitable. With a final word, his friends break off, leaving him to face the demonic tide alone. But in a stunning reversal, it's Jin who stops, telling his friend Young to go on and that hell handle the spirits. The muscular warrior, who was just about to make that sacrifice himself, looks back in complete confusion. Jin's grip on his blade tightens, his knuckles white and his hand stained with blood. He spins around, roaring at Young to run and bring the squad leader before he's killed. And the threat is very real. A grotesque horde of spider spirits closes in, their dead eyes fixed on him. His burly friend understands in an instant, shoving Young forward with all his might. He screams at him to run, to go get help and save Jin while he holds the line. Tears of anguish stream down Young's face, forced to abandon his comrades. He sprints away, vowing that if they die here, he will follow them to the depths of hell. Jin watches them go with a faint, bittersweet smile, thinking they're dumbasses he could never forgive if they died for him. With his comrades gone, Jin faces the first monster alone, his blade humming with purple light. A second spider spirit howls as it launches itself through the air, claws outstretched. But Jin is ready, unleashing a powerful cry as he swings his sword. A storm of phantom slashes erupts, a dazzling web of purple energy. The creature is caught mid-air, ripped apart by blows it can't even comprehend. Jin vaults effortlessly over the disoriented monster, a blur of dark robes. Its mind shatters, unable to process the illusionary assault it just suffered. He lands with a smirk. Brute strength is useless against his illusion sword style. The creature stumbles onto a branch, its attack completely neutralized. It turns, baffled, only to see Jin has already moved on to his next target. A sudden panic hits Jin. If this thing loses interest in him, it's going straight for Zhongguan. And his fears are already reality. His comrade is completely surrounded, barely holding on against the monstrous swarm. So Jin leaps into action, taunting the nearest creature to draw its undivided attention. The monster turns with a guttural snarl, its eyes locking onto the new, much more irritating target. It lunges forward in a blur, a clawed hand swiping right for Jin's throat. But Jin is already gone, flowing past the attack with a speed the creature can't even process. The chase begins, with Jin leading two enraged spirits on a frantic dance through the trees. He lands with a smirk, silently thanking his master for the evasion techniques keeping him alive. From above, the forest echoes with their furious shrieks as Jin masterfully kites them. But back on the ground, Zhongguan is still fighting for his life, forced to punch his way through the remaining horde. He's completely swarmed, two of the creatures clawing at him as he struggles to stay upright. With a roar, Zhongguan shoves one back, but his movements are getting sluggish, his stamina draining fast. Jin glances back, seeing his companion falter, and realizes his own time is running out. He's not sure he can hold on until the squad leader finally arrives. This thing chasing him is a monster, its body tougher than steel, and there's no opening to target its weak points. It's so fast he can't even risk turning to swing his sword. If it catches him, he's dead. He curses his luck. Running into a spider spirit in broad daylight is the worst possible scenario. But then, his eyes widen as a thought connects. A chaotic spirit at night, a spider spirit by day? Suddenly, he recalls hearing about a rocky mountain somewhere nearby. A dangerous idea sparks in his mind. It's a massive gamble, but it might be his only way out. With the monster's shriek echoing behind him, Jin puts his desperate plan into motion. He pivots, risking a shallow cut across the spirit's flank, just to bait it forward. Landing perfectly, he braces himself, knowing this is just the beginning of the gamble. And right on cue, the spider spirit collides with another demonic beast infesting the area. In its mindless rage, it tears into the other monster, its focus completely shattered. A confident smirk crosses Jin's face. The distraction is working. Time to press the advantage. He darts back into the chaos, expertly weaving between the brawling spirits. The spider spirit roars in frustration, its attacks growing wilder and more uncontrolled. It carves a path of carnage, blindly lashing out at anything that isn't Jin. And in that moment of fury, Jin finds the perfect opening, plunging his sword deep into its back. With a sharp tug, Jin yanks his blade free, deliberately marking the creature with his own blood. The spider spirit lets out a soul-tearing shriek, its eyes white with pure, undiluted rage. It completely ignores the other spirits, its entire world narrowing down to a single obsession: him. Not waiting for a thank you, Jin turns and bolts straight for the mouth of a dark cave. He plunges into the pitch-black abyss without a moment's hesitation. Deep inside, he finally stops, a confident smirk playing on his lips as the plan unfolds. He can hear the monster's furious screams echoing from the entrance, but it hasn't followed him in yet. Jin recalls a crucial piece of demonic lore. Most chaotic spirits are active at night, but spider spirits are an exception. They hunt during the day, relying almost entirely on sight, which means in the ghost suffocating darkness, it's now forced to track him by his scent. The beast's furious screams echo through the cave, and Jin knows the game is about to begin. But in this pitch-black environment, he's just as blind as his opponent. He clenches a bleeding fist, forcing himself to focus and recall his old sensory training. Reaching out, he closes his eyes, trying to feel every subtle shift in the air. He knows he'll only get one chance, and it has to be perfectly timed for when the spirit charges. He can't be rash. He must perceive its location, its actions, and its very form through his other senses. Jin attunes himself to the flow of the cave, a faint blue aura beginning to stir around him. A single drop of his blood drips onto the stone floor, a calculated, scented invitation. His eyes snap open with a flash of purple. He's found it. With a confident smirk, his entire body ignites in a brilliant blue light. Now, Jin explodes into motion, a single perfect slash of blue light arcing through the pitch-black cave. The shriek of the spider spirit is music to his ears, a smug grin spreading across his face. As the creature's cries echo and fade, a wave of relief washes over him. It actually worked. He lets out a ragged, almost unhinged laugh, the adrenaline finally hitting him. But he forces himself to focus, clenching a fist. The mission isn't over yet. Realizing there's no time to waste, he bolts out of the cave, racing back to his team. Elsewhere, Zhongguan is completely overwhelmed, a cunning spirit about to land a finishing blow. But just in time, he hears a familiar voice and turns to see Jin rushing to his side. A wide, beaming smile breaks across Jin's face as he reaches his friend, yelling that they're going back. Reunited, the squad stands together, defiantly shouting at the enemies who dared to separate them. Zhongguan throws his arms around his comrades, laughing that he's just glad they're all still alive. But the moment is cut short as a figure steps into their path, commanding their attention. It's their squad leader, Seol Peng, his expression unreadable as he takes in the scene. He gives Jin a nod of approval, impressed that even a second-rate warrior managed to defeat a Jugui. But Jin doesn't seem happy about the praise. Instead, he has a serious request for his leader. He asks him to keep what happened a secret, explaining that he doesn't want the attention for his lacking skills. The leader warns him that he'll get no credit or fame, but Jin simply smiles, insisting it's fine. With a hand over his heart, he says that just surviving with his friends is all the reward he needs. But the heartwarming memory shatters, plunging him into darkness as he screams his leader's name in terror. The joy is gone, replaced by a single, horrified eye, reflecting a tragedy we're about to witness. The memory twists into a nightmare. His squad leader, Seol Peng, stands alone in a dark forest. Suddenly, the world erupts in a hellish inferno, a desperate battle against an unseen foe. Seol Peng is thrown back, his body battered and broken, but he refuses to fall. A chilling, blood-soaked smile spreads across his face as the flames consume him. Jin jolts awake with a gasp, his heart pounding in his chest. He stares at his trembling hands, desperately trying to shake off the horrific vision. Seeing his leader's empty bed, he tries to reason it away, guessing he's just out training early. But the chilling truth crashes down on him. That nightmare was a memory from his past life. He remembers how hard he's fought this time, saving friends head lost and pushing his limits. Yet, as he clenches his fist, a cold doubt settles in. Is what he's done truly enough? He remembers the monstrous Chiolgi appearing, and how those beasts were merely a prelude. 5 years later, the true threat emerged, and 2 years after that, the front lines completely collapsed. The Blood Cult had ignored every treaty, expanding their territory with unstoppable force. He died on that battlefield, never knowing if the world was saved or conquered. So whatever the future holds, the only thing he can do now is focus on training every single day. But whenever that nightmare returns, he's forced to ask himself if what he's doing is truly enough. The answer echoes in the silence of the night. It can't be. With just 2 days left until his showdown with Ju Taekyung, his focus is pulled elsewhere. He's stuck on patrol duty, inwardly groaning that he wanted to train a bit more. A wry smile forms on his face. He never thought he'd be the kind of person to regret missing training. We shift perspectives to another warrior, Na Seoyu, lost in a dark memory of being sent to the front lines, a place she was sure she would die. It all began when she was 7. Her mother died, and her vicious stepmother took power as the head of the family. With her father unaware, the woman gave the order directly. Na Seoyu would go to the front. The stepmother put on a grand performance, asking how she could ever send the precious family heir, Na Seoyu's younger brother, to such a perilous place. Instead, she told the young girl that it was her duty to make this sacrifice for the family's sake. And Na Seoyu, broken and dutiful, believed that enduring this pain was the only way to serve her father and her clan. Clenching her hands together, she could only agree, swallowing her fear and despair. She knew it was a death sentence, but after years of submission, she didn't know how to refuse. And just as she'd feared, on her very first patrol at the front, a mortal crisis found her. She and her squadmate dashed through the woods, frantically searching for traces of a great ghoul that's lurking nearby. She finds the mangled body of her squadmate, the great ghoul's footprints marking the scene. The beast is still close. Her first instinct is to fire the signal flare and warn the others. But as she moves, a monstrous creature drops from above. The ghoul wasn't fleeing, it was waiting. She recognizes the aura instantly. This isn't just a beast, it's a Madu of the demonic cult. Before a proper scream can escape her lips, a paralyzing poison shoots through her veins. Her body locks up, and she hits the ground, completely immobilized. Just then, a man steps out from the shadows, grabbing her chin with a disgusting grin. He calls her an unexpected prize, his intentions chillingly obvious. Na Seoyu struggles with every fiber of her being, her face twisted in pure disgust. but she's helpless as the cultist begins to drag her away into the darkness. But out of the darkness, a blur of red smashes directly into the cultist's face. The scumbag is sent flying, completely blindsided by the devastating impact. Dazed and furious, he scrambles to his feet, demanding to know who dares to interfere. But the rescuer doesn't waste a single breath on words. He just cocks his fist back, ready to deliver another brutal lesson. Lying on the ground, Nasioyu can barely process what's happening. She was sure she was done for. Suddenly, the forest is quiet. The threat has been neutralized. Her comrade rushes to her side, his voice cracking as he asks if his little sister is hurt. He reaches down, offering a hand to help her up from the cold ground. With a warm, reassuring smile, he tells her that she's safe now. But she remains motionless on the ground, unable to move a single muscle. He realizes she was hit by a pressure point strike, and quickly offers to release it. As he works, she instinctively grabs onto him, still shaking from the near-death experience. He seems a little taken aback by the sudden contact, but she just smiles, feeling safe for the first time. She remembers how her fear simply vanished, replaced by a sudden, unexpected laugh. Not long after, he was selected as the leader for the newly formed Squad 7. He was so proud, she recalls, confidently stating that this was the happiest time of his life. And she felt the same, thinking she could die the next day with no regrets. They began their journey together, a new squad walking through the dense woods. Behind her, her comrades bicker, one complaining about the tough training while another scoffs that it's nothing to him. The squad's vice leader, Ever the Charmer, showers one of her teammates with compliments. He just scoffs, knowing she praises everyone a little too freely for it to be believable. A moment later, she's giving the muscular young Master Bay some questionable dating advice. She whispers that women don't like it when you're too obvious. You have to be subtle. But her playful mood shifts when her gaze lands on someone else. She turns to Seonu Jin, her expression softening with concern, wondering what's weighing so heavily on his mind. She knows everyone's pretending not to notice, but his funk, since the duel is dragging the whole team down. And then there's Chong Yun. A certain conversation they had earlier is still bothering her. As the group continues their patrol, her mind wanders back to that moment. She confesses to herself that at first, she was sure Jin and Chong Yun were lovers. Dudang was giggling, teasing her about how she'd felt sorry for another squadmate earlier. But the lighthearted atmosphere vanished when they were both stopped in their tracks. Cheong Yun, with a serious blush, dropped an absolute bombshell. She liked young Master Seonu. The confession left both the vice leader and Dudang completely speechless. They tried to wave it off, assuming she meant she liked him as a trustworthy teammate, nothing more. But Chong Yun doubled down, looking them dead in the eye, clarifying she liked him as a man. The vice leader couldn't believe it, questioning how she stayed so calm when Jin announced his crush on Dudang. With a knowing look, Chong Yun dismissed it, certain that Jin's interest wasn't romantic. Her eyes narrowed, seeing a different truth behind his actions that no one else did. She'd liked him since he was chubby, she explained, because she saw something far beyond his appearance. Dudang just doesn't get it, asking why Chong Yun isn't making a move. She should be showing her true self, getting closer to him, anything. But Chong Yun just smiles serenely, wondering why she needs to do something. She's perfectly happy, she explains, just observing him from the sidelines for now. Her friends are left completely speechless, and the vice leader just sighs at the complexity of it all. The moment is interrupted as their patrol leader, Seol Peng, suddenly stops the group in their tracks. Jin's eyes narrow as he and the vice leader both sense that something is definitely up. Without a word of warning, Seol Peng bursts forward like a crimson flash. He slams his hand down with incredible force, pinning someone who was hiding behind a tree. The man he caught is just a terrified civilian, who immediately starts begging for his life. The man frantically explains he's from the Miao tribe, just a simple man living in the forest. He begs them for help, explaining their benefactor, Elder Doc, is coughing up blood and near death. The vice leader calmly pieces it together. Their tribe was only safe because of this elder, who is now in critical condition. She wonders aloud if it's a case of internal energy deviation from botched martial arts training. Another squad member scoffs, questioning why a tribesman would risk coming to the dangerous front line for help. The man becomes even more desperate, pleading that if their elder dies, his entire tribe will be wiped out. But the patrol leader, Seol Peng, just stares him down, stating calmly that it's obviously a lie. He smirks, pointing out the glaring flaw. How could a tribe of non-warriors survive in a forest crawling with demonic cultists? The tribesman shouts back, insisting it was a special smell from Elder Doc that kept all the monsters at bay. At the mention of a smell, Jin's interest is finally piqued, and he asks what kind of smell he's talking about. The tribesman explains that the monsters absolutely hate the smell emanating from a special item given to them by Elder Doc. He presents a small, worn sachet, claiming this is the key to their survival in the treacherous forest. Without hesitation, Jin turns to his team leader, Seol Pung, and says it's time to go, leaving the man completely stunned. He argues that this one lead is more than enough reason to investigate, but one of his comrades immediately erupts in anger. The man, Ju Tae-gyong, grabs Jin, questioning his sanity for wanting to rely on a potentially fake charm from a stranger. Jin calmly points out the obvious. These people know the forest's terrain, and they'd be invaluable guides since the squad has to go in eventually. Losing his composure, his squadmate sputters about the non-aggression pact with the blood cult, realizing his mistake the moment the words leave his mouth. A wicked smile spreads across Jin's face as he latches onto the comment, sarcastically recalling how that pact has worked out for them so far. He leans in, calling out Ju Taegyong by name, expressing his mock disappointment that a disciple of the Diankang sect would sound so cowardly. Jin lands the final blow, asking if his comrade's plan was to simply rot here for 1,000 years, forgetting their true mission to defeat the blood cult. The man nervously explains it's a 2-hour journey if they hurry, but Seol Pung is clearly having second thoughts. The team leader worries that the time is too tight, and charging in blindly is a massive risk. Ju Taegyong seizes the moment, reminding them that abandoning their post is a major disciplinary offense. But Jin just grins, telling him not to worry, since he wasn't planning on asking him to come along anyway. He proposes a small, swift team, just himself, the leader, and one other, who can carry their guide. Then, with a glint in his eye, he turns his attention back to the issue of abandoning their post. He asks the guide a very specific question. Are there any demons in that forest that feed on vital energy, like spiders? The man's eyes widen in terror, confirming that those monsters are incredibly dangerous and scary. With that, Jin turns back to his squad, a sly smile on his face, asking if it isn't their duty to hunt down such a threat. The logic is undeniable, and Seol Pung's hesitation finally breaks into a grin. This was a mission they had to take. Just then, Chong Yun steps up, volunteering to join the dangerous mission herself. Jin accepts immediately. Having her swift skills along would be a definite asset. With the team set, Seol Pung turns to his trusted vice leader. He entrusts the rest of the squad to her, and she promises to wait for them. But before they can depart, Ju Taegyong stops Jin with a final, pointed warning. He sneers, vowing not to postpone their duel and accusing Jin of trying to run away. Jin simply gives him a dismissive, almost pitying smile. He scoffs at the idea, telling Taegyong his little duel is meaningless compared to this, leaving him seething. And with that, the small team disappears into the dense forest, moving as one. The guide, now on Jin's back, can only gasp in shock at their superhuman speed. Jin notes the man's surprisingly cheerful attitude, excited even while being carried like a sack of rice. It sparks a memory this same man, a member of the Miao tribe, had come to them for help in his past life. Back then, Jin had simply dismissed the encounter, thinking it was a meaningless, passing event. But he couldn't have been more wrong. Soon after, a venomous serpent demon attacked their unit. 20 of their own were poisoned, including their comrade Na Seoyu, all while Seol Pung was away saving Taegyong's team. The poison was a mystery. Even their best physicians were helpless as Na Seoyu faded away. Desperate for a cure, Seol Pung had ventured alone into the perilous jungle to seek an antidote. He did return, 2 days later, with a life-saving herb, but by then, it was already too late for her. Her death changed everything. Seol Pung grew cold and distant, and Jin dedicated himself to vengeance. From that tragedy, legends were born, as Seol Pung became the gale-flying dragon, and Jin mastered the ultimate arts. And so, the flashback continues, with the Miao tribesmen guiding Jin, hoping this was the man who once helped his leader. He leads them into the moonless forest, warning them of countless venomous creatures that only he could navigate. Jin glances up at the sky, finding a small bit of solace in the brightly shining stars. He then turns to his comrade Seong, cheekily suggesting they train to sense their surroundings with closed eyes, just like their leader. Seong scoffs at the idea, complaining their training is already hellish enough without adding impossible tasks to the list. But their guide quickly hushes them, signaling them to draw near as they enter a den of poisonous snakes. The squad immediately falls silent, treading carefully through the pitch-black woods. Suddenly, a flash of movement breaks the silence, putting both Jin and Seong on high alert. Before either of them can react, their red-robed comrade's hand flashes out, snatching something from the air. He holds up his prize, a 3-colored poison snake, one of the rarest and deadliest creatures in the entire jungle. He casually holds the deadly serpent, remarking that this place, apparently, isn't the real danger zone. Their guide stares in utter disbelief, exclaiming that he's amazing only the revered Elder Doc could pull off such a feat. He warns them that up ahead lies the true poison forest, a vast swamp so lethal that even the local tribes dare not enter. Jin realizes with a somber heart that this forbidden place must be where their targets are hiding, driven there by the blood cult. His red-robed comrade connects the dots, asking if the poison also keeps the demonic cultists at bay. The guide confirms it, his voice trembling as he recalls warnings of a horrifying, poison-spitting monster that lurks deeper within. The group listens, a thought crossing their minds. This mysterious Elder Doc seems to know an awful lot about the demonic cult. Their guide stresses the importance of the herbal medicine they're wearing. Without it, every snake and insect would tear them apart. The blue-haired woman whispers her relief, admitting they would have been in serious trouble if they'd come unprepared. His comrade smirks, finally understanding why patrols never ventured this far. They're only 2 hours from their destination. But just as they press forward, a strange rustling from the trees puts everyone on edge. Sae-young nervously asks what that sound was, but his red-robed comrade tells him some things are better left unknown. Their guide, however, calmly points out the source, a monstrous centipede, larger than a man, watching them from the forest. Jin's mind flashes to the legendary flying heaven centipede, though he quickly dismisses the idea as impossible. The guide just laughs, explaining that this one's a friend. He fed it once, so it's perfectly harmless and quite smart. Jin isn't convinced a centipede that recognizes people is dangerous enough, so he asks what the real threats are. With a disturbingly casual tone, the guide lists off even more horrors: palm-sized hornets, human-faced spiders, and giant horned snakes. The cute explanation is shattered by a terrifying vision of what those monsters actually look like, chilling the warriors to the bone. Completely rattled, Sae-young sarcastically asks if there's a dragon here too, but their guide has never heard of such a creature. At least there's one monster they don't have to worry about, a small comfort that brings a wave of relief to the shaken Sae-young. But the guide quickly shatters their brief moment of calm, his voice laced with a new fear. He warns them of a black leopard, a beast so steeped in poison that its very teeth and claws are lethal weapons. The red-robed warrior, completely unfazed, simply points into the darkness where the creature waits. The entire group halts, a silent tension falling over them as they face the unseen predator. And then it emerges, a hulking black panther, its golden eyes glowing with malice in the gloom. Even the guide is panicked now, explaining this creature shouldn't be here. It belongs in the deepest part of the forest. In a desperate move, he tosses a slab of meat onto the ground, hoping to appease the beast. The panther's glowing eyes fixate on the offering, a low growl rumbling in its chest. It slowly approaches, planting a massive paw with razor-sharp claws directly onto the meat. But as it turns to leave, the guide realizes with a chill that the meat was just an appetizer. To the panther, they smell far more delicious. Jin mutters under his breath, wondering if they smell so good because they didn't use the right herbs. Sae-young quips that he wishes Jin was fatter, and Jin instantly knows why to be thrown as bait. As the group scatters, Sae-young jokes he'll just run faster, repaying Jin for teaching him a new movement technique. The moment of levity shatters as the beast lunges, a massive shadow blotting out the moonlight. But the man in red doesn't flinch, leaping forward to meet the monstrous panther head-on. He throws a powerful punch, a direct strike aimed right at the creature's jaw. A brutal impact follows as fist meets claw in a blur of motion and raw power. Sae-young can't believe his eyes. The team leader's signature fist technique was just blocked. The panther roars, its paw glowing with an eerie light, completely unfazed by the attack. With terrifying speed, it swings its massive paw, sending the red-robed warrior flying backwards. He smashes into the ground, sent tumbling by the overwhelming force of the blow. Before he can even recover, the beast is on him, a clawed paw descending like a guillotine. The monster lets out a victorious roar, ready to finish the job. But out of nowhere, a fist slams into the creature's flank its Ju Tae-gyong, not letting a comrade die. In that instant, the rest of the squad converges, launching a coordinated counter-assault. Sae-young and the blue-haired woman dive in from above, swords poised for a killing blow. But the panther is unnaturally fast, twisting its body to evade their perfectly timed pincer attack. They completely miss, leaving them wide open as Sae-young realizes their grave mistake. It whips around with a powerful swipe, a blur of motion that forces them to scatter. They land safely, but the grim realization hits them. This thing is on another level. But instead of attacking, the demonic panther simply stops, its rampage ending as quickly as it began. With a final, piercing glare from its glowing yellow eyes, the beast seems to lose interest. It turns its back on them, casually padding away into the darkness of the forest, leaving the squad stunned. The warrior in red can only watch it go, realizing with a shudder that it's actually retreating. His comrades are in utter disbelief, barely able to process that such a monstrous creature even exists. One of them mutters that he doesn't care if it exists somewhere else, but having it right here was terrifying. As the brutal night finally ends, the exhausted squad continues their journey through the woods. Jin decides to use the time to learn, absorbing as much knowledge as he can from the man named Dokkum. Dokkum, though not a man of many words, proves to be an excellent teacher, pointing out useful herbs to counter demonic poisons. By the time they finally reach the safety of Dokkum's camp, the sun was just beginning to rise. As they walk, Ju Taegyong confidently estimates they'll be back in about 6 hours. Sejong is stunned, asking how the others managed to memorize the path in the dead of night. Jin and the blue-haired woman just look at him, thinking it was a simple path and a basic skill to remember. Their guide, Dokkum, finally points to a small house in a clearing, telling them they've arrived. He bursts through the door, yelling for the poison elder and announcing he's brought help. A group of children light up, shouting with joy that Dokkum has finally returned. They crowd around him, relieved and happy after he was gone for the whole night. But their happy reunion is cut short by a harsh, angry voice from the back of the room. An old man, the poison elder, gets to his feet, demanding to know what nonsense Dokkum is spouting. He glares at the newcomers with pure contempt, asking if they're the so-called heroes from the Soaring Dragon Corps. With a face twisted in rage, the poison elder screams at the group to get lost at once. Ju Taegyong clenches a fist, his patience wearing thin as the old man rants that the very sight of them makes him sick. To emphasize his point, the elder smashes his medicine bowl on the floor, sending shards flying. Dokkum rushes over, horrified, but the old man grabs him, snarling he'd rather die than accept help from their kind. And just like that, the entire team finds themselves unceremoniously kicked out of the small hut. His comrades are baffled, with Sejong muttering about how ridiculous this all is. Dokkum is mortified, bowing and scraping as he apologizes profusely for the disastrous welcome. Sejong tries to lighten the mood, joking to Jin that at least they got an interesting show out of it. But Jin sees an opportunity, telling Dokkum they'll help him again, in exchange for a future favor, which Dokkum eagerly accepts. In his mind, however, Jin smirks. His goal was never charity, but to secure a local contact for herbs and intel. Jin cheekily suggests they head back, but squad leader Seolpung clearly has other plans. Ignoring his team's confusion, the squad leader turns right around and walks back into the hut. He calmly pushes his hair back, ready to explain that there's been a little misunderstanding. But the elder isn't listening, still raging and demanding they get out of his sight. Seolpung patiently explains that while he is from the Soaring Dragon Corps, he is not an orthodox martial artist. The old man scoffs at the very idea, calling it nonsense, a ridiculous contradiction. Seeing his chance, Seolpung proposes a wager. If he can prove it, the elder must accept their help. The elder is left speechless, completely blindsided by the sudden, confident challenge. Taking the stunned silence as a yes, Seolpung boldly steps forward to make his case. Outside, his squad is utterly lost, questioning how their leader could possibly not be an orthodox martial artist. But Jin knows better. He recalls that no one, not even the other Soaring Dragon Corps leaders, knew Seolpung's true identity. He remembers the day the front lines collapsed, seeing his leader's true form for the first time, a warrior wreathed in flames with terrifying crimson eyes. And now, the poison elder sees those very same eyes, stammering in absolute terror at the monstrous aura before him. Seolpung just gives him a slight, knowing smile, asking why someone like him would be in the Soaring Dragon Corps. He then takes the old man's hand and after a moment, apologizes, stating that his own abilities are insufficient to cure the poison. The elder, regaining a sliver of his arrogance, scoffs that if he couldn't cure himself, what could a nobody like Seolpung possibly do? Dokkum rushes forward, bowing and apologizing profusely for his father's disrespect, begging Seolpung not to take it to heart. With a soft clench of his fist, Seolpung turns away from the bedridden elder, his part in this wager seemingly over. Seolpung gathers his squad, announcing that it's finally time for them to leave. But he pauses, throwing a knowing glance at the old man, asking if he plans on keeping his own secrets from the kids as well. With a grim, tired expression, the poison elder drops an absolute bombshell. He's a member of the blood cult. The revelation sends Sai-young and Na Seo-yu reeling in shock. A practitioner of the demonic arts, right here among them? Jin, however, is unfazed. It all makes sense now, the elder's deep knowledge of demonic humans and his bitter hatred for the orthodox sects. He had already theorized the man was a retired demonic artist, though Dokkum's testimony about him helping the Miao people had been a puzzle. Sai-young, feeling utterly betrayed, whips around to face his leader, demanding to know if this is true. Seolpung can't meet his gaze, quietly apologizing for hiding the truth to protect Dokkum and the children. The entire squad is stunned into silence, the air crackling with the weight of this dangerous secret. Furious, Young draws his blade, declaring that while his leader might be okay with this, he will never forgive a blood cultist. He suddenly moves, pressing his sword against Dokkum's throat as the man pleads for his life. The Poison Elder just scoffs, sneering that this is exactly what he'd expect from the Orthodox sects. He mocks their need to kill any demonic being on sight, and an enraged Young screams at the demon to be silent. But just as his killing intent surges, the children rush forward, pleading with the great hero not to harm the old man. Their pleas only fuel Young's righteous anger as he questions what right a cultist has to mock them. The elder's face twists with pure hatred, retorting that he lost everything and will mock them as he pleases. He dares Young to come at him, boasting that even in his weakened state, he can easily handle a kid. That's it. With a feral snarl and eyes glowing with rage, Young accepts, promising to grant his wish. But as his sword descends, his comrades grab hold, trying to restrain his blind fury. The children cry out in terror, begging the hero not to kill their grandfather. Their voices trigger a flash of memory to young disciples, a painful echo of his own past. Young freezes, his face contorted in a grimace of internal conflict. The jarring image of a tragic past makes his resolve waver. Dokkum seizes the opportunity, grabbing his arm and forcing the blade away. Composing himself, Young declares his identity as a great disciple of the Bijong sect. He then makes a shocking announcement. He'll wipe this encounter from his memory, acting as if he never saw the demonic cult leader. The old man's eyes widen in disbelief, the name of the sect catching him completely off guard. With a confident smirk, Young confirms that he's from the Bijong sect of Guangxi, and the elder knows exactly what that implies. The elder's tone turns grave as he speaks of a past tragedy, the Muhuang bloodbath. That name alone is enough to send Young into a rage, demanding how he dares mention that incident. The old man confesses he lost everything to the Orthodox factions, and has no regrets about his path of revenge. But if Young is a descendant of those who died that day, he offers his life freely. Young is completely stunned, unable to comprehend what the elder is offering. Then comes the bombshell. The elder declares he was the one who masterminded the entire massacre. He specifies that he slaughtered the adults of Young's sect, leaving the young warrior speechless. Just then, Young's comrades arrive, shocked to find him in such a tense standoff. The elder insists his side of the story doesn't matter, begging Young to kill him and resolve his anger. But rage has turned to a burning need for answers, as Young grabs him, demanding to know what really happened. With a heavy heart, the old man finally begins his story, introducing himself as Seok Kyungdal, once the chief clerk of the Orthodox Jian sect. He flashes back to a simpler time, when he and his lord, Jian Mugwang, were close confidants. The two of them shared a grand ambition, to recover the legendary lightning flash sword, a martial art lost for a century. After years of searching, Mugwang finally unearthed his forefather's secret room, and with it, the lost technique. It was a day of pure joy for the entire clan, a celebration of their newfound strength, but their happiness was tragically short-lived. The problem was, that secret room was on the territory of the Ma family manor, whose leader promptly demanded rights to their technique. Jian Mugwang refused, of course, so the Ma family head escalated the matter to one of the 9 great sects, the rulers of Eunan. At the time, Kyungdal and his lord couldn't imagine a great Orthodox sect siding with such a baseless, greedy claim. But they were naive. The Diankang sect master's favorite pupil just so happened to be the Ma family head's own son. With the full weight of a great sect pressing down on them, Kyungdal made one last desperate plea for help from the alliance. But his pleas were met with cold silence. Not a single member of the alliance would see him. By the time he returned, his home was a field of corpses and smoldering ruins. The only other survivor, Jian Mugwang, explained how they'd used his daughter as a hostage. With their hands forced and hearts set on revenge, they saw only one path forward. And that's when the remnants of the blood cult appeared, offering them the power they craved. Jin's eyes sharpen with understanding. So the Muhuang bloodbath was all a setup by Diankang. The old man grimly confirms it, a bitter satisfaction in his voice as he recalls how they fell right into his trap. But he never imagined they'd be so ruthless as to sacrifice every martial artist there. Now, kneeling before his victim's descendant, he offers his life, demanding that Young take his revenge. But just as the young warrior might act, the children rush forward, crying out for their grandfather's life. Young stands over the broken man, a single question cutting through the tense air. Why is he hiding here? The poison elder explains that his path diverged from his comrades. While he only wanted revenge, Jian Mugwang began to dream bigger. A smirk plays on Jin's lips as he connects the dots, asking if this life, raising these children, is his attempt at repentance. But the old man denies it. He claims he couldn't repent for taking so many lives, he just couldn't help himself. That phrase "couldn't help himself" hangs in the air, and a dark, chilling laugh escapes Jin's lips. The words trigger something in Young, and he finally explodes, grabbing the man and screaming about the life he was forced to live. He couldn't abandon his sect, his masters, but this man, a member of the fearsome blood cult, just ran away? He then reveals the twisted irony of it all. He met Ju Taegyong of the Diankang sect and told him everything. But instead of remorse, the Diankang warrior mocked his master and tried to kill him on the spot. His fist trembles with rage and despair. The real villain lives without a care, while the cultist who helped him begs for death. It just isn't fair. Young's rage peaks, threatening that killing the elder would only create more vengeful souls just like him. But Jin steps in, coolly advising Young to stop making promises he can't keep, and tells the old man to repent while he still can. With his outburst contained, Young finally gets to the point. They need his knowledge of poisons and the blood cult. The elder silently considers the proposal, his expression unreadable. After a long moment, he makes a decision, instructing Dokkum to bring him something he made. Dokkum returns holding a small, dark object on a piece of parchment, an elixir. The elder offers it to Young, stating it's not repentance, but a pill on par with a lesser Shaolin rejuvenation pill. But Young explodes again, flustered and shouting that he's not the kind of person to be bought off so easily. Jin just smirks, finding it hilarious after all of Young's previous complaints about never having any elixirs. Torn between his pride and greed, Young looks at his comrades and suggests they split it. Trying to save face, Young starts lecturing them about the dangers of chi deviation. But his comrades aren't having it. The squad leader and Cheongyun politely decline, explaining they've already hit their cultivation ceiling. The poison elder stares in disbelief, having never seen martial artists so casually pass up a priceless treasure. That's when Jin steps forward with a smirk, telling Young not to worry about a thing and to just eat the pill. Cheongyun looks on, puzzled, wondering if there's some secret method to bypass such a fundamental danger. A look of realization dawns on the poison elder's face as he prepares to share one of the blood cult's greatest secrets. He reveals the key to their method, something he calls a poison core. It's a special chi core, he explains, one that's been infused with the faintest trace of poisonous energy. Normally, chi deviation happens when internal and external energies collide uncontrollably within the body. Jin listens intently, silently wondering how such a revolutionary concept has stayed completely hidden from the Murim until now. The poison elder emphasizes that this is one of the blood cult's most fiercely guarded secrets. It's a perfect cover. Even if a member dies, nobody would question a poison core, keeping the method itself completely hidden. Jin is practically vibrating with excitement. This is it, the reason the blood cult could build power so fast, and they just stumbled right into it. Ju Taegyong cuts through the amazement, urging both Jin and Young to take the elixir now that they know how. With the path clear, Young agrees, and both of them prepare to finally consume the legendary pills. But their moment is interrupted when one of the Miao villagers asks about a missing child named Raccoon. Another child pipes up, explaining Raccoon never returned, so Dokkum had gone out to search for him that very morning. The villager tries to brush off his growing fear, telling himself Dokkum knows the forest well, but his unease is palpable. Deep in those dark woods, the lost boy is frozen in terror, as a shadowy figure with glowing eyes looms over him. And just as the villager voices his hope, a massive explosion rips through the forest right where the child was standing. The source of the commotion is a ferocious, poison-fanged panther, lunging from the trees. But before it can even land, it's sent tumbling through the air by an unseen force. A single, effortless strike from a powerful figure is all it takes to neutralize the beast. Standing over its unconscious body is a man who radiates pure menace, a demonic general. His followers immediately start singing his praises, fawning over his incredible strength. He orders them to capture the creature alive, noting its poison might interest the blood demon. But one of his men gets a little too familiar, questioning why a general is on a simple collection mission. The general's face hardens. Is this man daring to question the judgment of the blood demon? The sycophant immediately panics, stammering that he was only worried for the general's sake. His concern earns him a brutal backhand, a sharp lesson in knowing his place. With a sickening crunch, the general executes the fool, declaring they have no need for those who don't submit. Just then, another cultist rushes in, reporting that they've captured a Miao child nearby. He proudly presents the crying child, holding up a scent bag that wards off living corpses. The terrified kid insists they live alone, that there's no hideout, but the cultist holds them tight. The general muses to himself, it makes sense the Miao would have a way to repel the corpses, but why carry it? His eyes narrow with suspicion, and in a flash, he's got the child by the throat. The poor kid chokes, struggling helplessly against the monster's grip. With his eyes glowing a sinister green, he whispers for the child to listen to his words. A wave of demonic power washes over them, and the child's frantic terror fades into a blank, empty stare. Meanwhile, Jin's mentor explains that this is only the beginning of the blood demon's horrifying plan. Jin's allies listen, stunned, as the poison elder explains the demonic humans were mere prototypes. He confirms this is why he deserted Mugwang. The living corpses were just the beginning of a much darker ambition. But just as he's about to reveal the final, terrifying goal, a child's panicked voice cuts him off. A young girl bursts in, screaming that the boy, Rakun, is bringing strange men right to their doorstep. With a growing sense of dread, the elder rushes to the window to see who has found them. A single glance is all it takes for his face to twist in pure, unadulterated horror. He stumbles backward, frantically ordering everyone to run for their lives through the back exit. The monster outside is Jigwangok, the bloodlust demonic general, who charmed Rakun to find their hideout. This is a true master of the demonic cult, a pinnacle realm monster with the blood of hundreds on his hands. When a villager pleads to save the boy, the elder declares it's too late, Rakun is already lost, and any rescue attempt is suicide. Seol Pung glances back at his comrades, a silent resolve hardening in his eyes. The old man kneels, begging him to flee with the children, while he buys time a suicide mission. But a firm voice cuts through the panic. It's not just the squad leader's decision. Chong Yun steps forward, her gaze unwavering, declaring that we will stand and fight together. While they prepare for the inevitable, the villagers make their desperate escape into the woods. Too late, the demonic general arrives, led by the very boy they tried to protect. A cruel smirk spreads across his face. He's finally cornered the man he calls Elder Seok. But as they advance, a figure steps out, blocking their path to the village. Seol Pung and Cheong Yan emerge from the doorway, ready to become the final line of defense. He introduces himself with cold authority. Seol Pung, squad leader of the Soaring Dragon Corps, demanding to know who dares trespass here. The demonic general sneers at the mention of the Soaring Dragon Corps, introducing himself as Ji Guangok of the Blood Cult. He warns them that he has business with the old man, and they'd better not stand in his way. Seol Pung acknowledges the general's reputation but firmly reminds him that this area is protected under a ceasefire agreement. Ji Guangok scoffs at the bluff, looking around and seeing nothing that marks this as alliance territory. But it is, Seol Pung insists, pointing towards the village and asking the general if he can't see the corps insignia right over there. The general's arrogance gets the better of him, and for a split second, he actually turns to look. That's all the opening Seol Pung needs, as he explodes forward with blinding speed. Before the general can even process the trick, a devastating strike slams into him. The powerful blow sends Ji Guangok reeling backward, a grunt of pain escaping his lips. Seol Pung gives him no time to recover, unleashing a furious and relentless combination of attacks on the stunned general. The demonic general can universe teeth in pain, caught completely off guard by the vicious assault. Seeing their leader in trouble, his cultist lackeys immediately charge forward to provide support. One of them grins, thinking he's got Seol Pung cornered as he lunges in with his sword. But out of nowhere, the mysterious Cheong Yun intercepts with a brutal flying kick. She moves with fluid grace, effortlessly parrying another cultist's blade. The scumbags are enraged by her interference, immediately resorting to vile and disgusting threats. One gives orders to his comrades, telling them not to kill her, but to keep her limbs and face intact. Cheong Yun just smirks, coolly repeating their disgusting demands right back at them. Meanwhile, Seol Pung is a blur of motion, unleashing a devastating attack on another enemy. But a grim reality sets in. He knows he can only maintain this level of power for 15 minutes. With his time limit ticking down, Seol Pung lunges forward, determined to end this now. He unleashes a vicious punch, a straight shot aimed right at the cultist's core. The blow connects with a brutal impact, burying his fist deep into the man's gut. He follows through instantly with a powerful spinning kick, giving his opponent no room to breathe. The cultist is sent flying, crashing into the earth with enough force to shatter the ground. But this is no ordinary lackey. The cultist rebounds, launching a fierce counterattack of his own. A solid palm strike smacks into Seol Pung, forcing him to cross his arms to block the blow. The cultist presses his advantage, leaping into the air with his fists crackling with dark energy. He comes crashing down with a devastating double-fisted strike, aiming to crush our hero. Yet even as Hayes thrown back, a grim, determined smirk plays on Seol Pung's lips. Seol Pung twists mid-air, narrowly evading the devastating strike and preparing a counter of his own. He smashes a bone-jarring elbow right into the cultist's face, a direct and brutal hit. But his opponent barely flinches, driving a fist deep into Seol Pung's stomach in return. The sheer force of the blow sends Seol Pung scraping backward across the dirt, fighting to absorb the impact. The cultist actually chuckles, a bloody grin spreading across his face, impressed by his opponent's incredible durability. He tells Seol Pung to consider it an honor to die by his hands, moving in for the kill. But the memory shifts, showing the poison elder guiding children toward a hidden cellar. A villager pleads for the elder to join them, but the old man shakes his head. He knows his end is near. He insists he'll make the most of the life he has left, pushing them toward the secret door. Finally alone, the poison elder kneels, his resolve set, preparing for his final moments. He laments having to use the demonic arts again, a power he had sealed away with medicine. Dark purple energy surges through him, twisting his body and warping his mind with new, violent impulses. But he dismisses it. This body is on its last legs anyway, so he might as well have some fun. Just as he resolves himself, a hand firmly grabs his shoulder from behind. The poison elder turns, startled to see Dakum, demanding to know why he hasn't escaped yet. His surprise then morphs into pure, unadulterated shock at what he's witnessing. Meanwhile, in another part of the battlefield, the young swordswoman Chong Yun moves like a storm. She stands poised and ready, her expression cold as ice. But her opponents are nothing but scum, hurling disgusting taunts at her as they close in. Elsewhere, the fight continues as squad leader Seol Pung slams a powerful blow into a cultist's gut. The squad leader barely dodges, his body pushed to its absolute limit. His opponent follows up with a devastating strike that shatters the very earth where he just stood. Seol Pung can only grit his teeth, realizing just how incredible it is that he survived this long against a supreme pinnacle master. Meanwhile, Chong Yun knows she's in a bind. A single risky move could get her captured and ruin everything. But then, she seems to notice something. A small opening, perhaps. A cool, confident smirk spreads across her face. She's found her chance. One of the cultists, completely oblivious, leaps forward yelling that he'll be the one to take her down. He flies right into a whirlwind of blindingly fast, azure slashes. Before he can even comprehend the attack, his body is covered in a dozen fatal wounds. And just like that, Cheong Yun stands perfectly still as the cultist dissolves into nothing behind her. The remaining cultists stare in disbelief, realizing the girl had been hiding her true power all along. Furious, they order a full-scale assault, not caring if she loses a limb as long as she's captured. They swarm in from all sides, a lone swordsman bringing his blade down for the killing blow. But in a flash of movement, someone else intercepts the attack. It's Seonu Jin, a cocky smirk on his face. He casually parries the bald cultist's strike, much to the man's enraged frustration. With purple chi swirling around him, Jin glances back, praising Chong Yun for her excellent work. He turns to face the next wave, coolly informing them that simply having more men won't change their fate. This is the perfect opportunity, he thinks, to test the 60 years of chi he's accumulated. He unleashes his clan's technique, the Xianwu 13 Swords, as a storm of purple energy erupts, engulfing his foe. The cultist can only cry out in utter shock as the technique, bird soars over the horizon, tears him apart. The purple arc of his sword cleaves through another foe, a graceful and deadly dance. Jin lands lightly, a small smile playing on his lips. It was far easier than he'd imagined. With a flick of his blade, he's already scanning the chaos, hungry for the next challenge. One of the cultists freezes, his bravado gone as a shadow appears behind him. He barely has time to register the flicker of steel before his world goes dark. Jin stands over the body, asking Chong Yun if he intruded. She'd welcome this kind of help any day. Nearby, another cultist leader screams for his men as he's cornered by her squad. But it's too late. The leader, Ji Guanggok, has been completely isolated from his grunts. He scoffs, looking up to meet his fate as a new technique forms in the air. A phantom made of pure energy plummets down, crashing into him with overwhelming power. The impact of the attack throws Ji Guanggok's mind into a vivid memory of a past battle. He's forced to witness this same devastating technique completely overwhelm another master. The spectral figure is the legendary Poison Elder, Sok, a face Ji Guanggok recognizes in an instant. The Elder's phantom seems confused, mistaking his opponent for a man named Mu Guang. A terrible realization dawns on the old master. The blood demon must have recovered his forbidden research. His opponent, John Muguang, just smirks, confirming he's here on a direct order from their master. He was given one simple, brutal mission: find Elder Sok and send him to the afterlife. With a booming laugh and a mocking farewell, Muguang lunges forward in a crimson blur. The Elder knows his remaining 90 years of chi isn't nearly enough to win this fight, but he unleashes it all the same, his purple aura clashing with the red tide in a final, doomed explosion. John Muguang is momentarily stunned by the sheer power of the Elder's final stand. The blast sends both warriors hurtling backward, tearing up the ground between them. But Mugwang's surprise quickly melts into a condescending laugh. He knows what the elder just did. From the sidelines, Ji Guangok recalls the tales of the crazed blood pill, a forbidden power-up with fatal consequences. He understands the old man's plan now, a desperate, suicidal gambit to take his enemy with him. As Mugwang lunges for the kill, Ji Guangok flashes forward, intercepting the attack. He slams his fists into the cultist, shoving him away from the vulnerable elder. Mugwang is sent flying, cursing the flea that dared to get in his way. But the damage is done. The poison elder stumbles, his body ravaged by the pill's backlash. With a triumphant roar, Mugwang closes the distance, ready to deliver the final, mocking goodbye. Seeing his master's plight, Ju Taegyong cries out, rushing forward in a desperate attempt to help, but a firm hand suddenly clamps down on his arm, halting his reckless charge. He turns in disbelief, only to see Jin holding him back, his expression unreadable. Jin gives a subtle shake of his head, a silent message that it's already over. And he's right, the poison elder, now a monster of pure vengeance, lunges at his foe. Mugwang, still brimming with arrogance, simply smirks, ready to swat the old man away like a fly. But this is no longer a desperate attack. It's a final, terrifying transformation. The elder latches on, and Mugwang's smug confidence instantly shatters into disbelief and fury. With his life force erupting, the elder makes his final vow. He's taking this monster down with him. And in a blinding flash, his body explodes, unleashing a catastrophic wave of destructive energy. Taegyong screams the elder's name in despair, but for Jin, this was all part of the plan. He'd already concluded that a straight fight, even with their best tricks, was a losing battle. The memory flashes back to the grim conversation the poison elders resolved to self-destruct. Saiyang had been utterly baffled, questioning why he'd make such a sacrifice. But the old man's reason was simple, a quiet statement of his own conviction. Now, the aftermath of that decision tears through the clearing, shrouding everything in dust. A furious roar cuts through the smoke as Mugwang emerges, a huge chunk of his shoulder blown away. Taegyong can only stare in shock. The monster had actually used warding chi to survive. Though heavily wounded and coughing blood, the brute is still on his feet. But in that brief moment of weakness, Jin sees his opening and lunges forward. This is the chance. This one opening was bought with an old man's life, and Jin refuses to waste it. He slams into Mugwang with everything he has, a brutal strike right to the chest. The sheer force of the blow sends the giant stumbling backward, shock on his face. Mugwang digs his feet into the earth, desperately trying to regain his balance. He can only spit curses, furious that this damn brat is actually hurting him. But Jin gives him no room to breathe, landing a vicious hook right across his jaw. Planting a bloodied hand, he pivots off the ground, flowing into his next attack. Mugwang can barely even grunt as the relentless assault continues without pause. An uppercut buries itself deep into his gut, lifting him clean off his feet. Watching from the side, Taegyong erupts, roaring for his squad leader to end this now. Jin's final, desperate strike connects, aiming to finish the hulking brute for good. But the resulting splash of blood isn't from his enemy. To everyone's horror, Jin suddenly collapses to his knees, blood pouring from his mouth. Taegyong realizes with a jolt Jin's secret art, the source of his power, had a 15-minute time limit. And judging by the state he's in, Jin must have pushed himself far past that breaking point. Mugwang rises, a cruel, mocking laugh escaping his bloodied lips. How unfortunate for the little brat. He looms over the fallen squad leader, promising to kill him first before wiping out his friends. Panic sets in among the others. Jin was the only one at the pinnacle realm, the only one who stood a chance. Without another master-level fighter, they're all doomed. If only they had one more. And in that moment of despair, a sudden idea sparks in Taegyong's mind. That's it. Screaming Mugwang's name, Taegyong charges forward, cloaked in a bizarre purple aura. The giant brute just scoffs, seeing this as nothing more than a pathetic, final struggle. With a single swipe, he meets the attack, throwing up a massive cloud of earth and rock. Mugwang dismisses the move as a cheap trick, utterly unimpressed. But as the dust swirls, a flicker of confusion crosses his face. Where did he go? Taegyong had already slipped past him, a blur of motion and grim determination. The rage hits Mugwang a second too late. He realizes he was just a distraction. Because Taegyong wasn't attacking him, he was grabbing a massive netted beast from the ground. With a powerful heave, he hurls the heavy projectile straight at the stunned demon. His hand grips a small, glowing hilt, the true key to this desperate gambit now in play. The net bursts, and from it explodes a demonic panther, crackling with dark energy. Mugwang stares, a flicker of disbelief on his face. A beast? This is his grand plan? But before he can laugh, the creature is on him, a blur of shadow and claws. A savage roar tears through the quiet forest as the two finally collide. Mugwang meets the attack with brute force, his muscles straining against the demonic assault. The panther is thrown back but lands with vicious grace, immediately coiling for another strike. Mugwang is forced to raise his guard, his focus now completely consumed by this relentless animal. And just like that, the real plan unfolds as Taegyong sprints right past the preoccupied demon. The brute's head whips around, finally realizing he's been played for a fool. He roars in utter frustration, screaming that a mere panther won't change a thing. His eyes burn with absolute fury, but just as he's about to chase, something stops him cold. A sharp, searing pain bites into his shoulder a small, tricolored snake. His bloodshot eyes widen in disbelief and a flicker of genuine panic. Across the clearing, Taegyong reveals the now empty sack, a cold look confirming this was no accident. That single moment of hesitation is all the opening the demonic panther needs. It latches on with primal force, tearing into flesh and muscle as Taegyong watches the plan commence. With a sickening rip, Mugwang's entire arm is torn from his body and flung aside. The blood-soaked beast stands triumphant, its glowing eyes fixed on its next move. Taegyong's expression is grim, knowing this brutal opening was just the beginning. With the panther standing guard over its grisly trophy, he finally draws his blade. With the brute eliminated, the demonic panther stands over its grisly work, its glowing eyes locking with Taegyong's. Its mission complete, the beast turns without a sound and melts back into the shadows of the forest. Only when the danger has truly passed does Taegyong's body give out, collapsing to the ground in sheer relief. But he's not alone. His team leader, Seol Pung, appears, battered but alive, commending him for saving the team. Taegyong immediately pushes back, insisting it was Seol Pung's own sacrifice that bought them the time they needed. He's far more concerned for his leader's well-being, seeing how hard he pushed himself in the fight. Seol Pung simply waves it off, saying he just needs a little rest and that it's time to return to headquarters. But Taegyong knows this was about more than just survival. He had to be here to prevent his past self from making a terrible mistake. He calls out to his leader, stopping him before they can leave. There's something important he needs to report, a truth that must be shared on the journey back. Meanwhile, back at headquarters, Taegyong apologizes to another team leader before departing. The female vice leader watches him go, her mind already on logistics, wondering if she should move up Sagunil's shift. Dudang remarks that the other leader, Han Gyeosung, took the apology well, though she calls him a lazy glutton. The vice leader agrees, adding that despite his flaws, he was a born genius in martial arts, even acknowledged by the Qingcheng sect. With that settled, she announces her plan to visit the second team leader, Sagunil, also known as the Diankang Dragon. She offers to go alone, knowing Dudang might be uncomfortable meeting someone from the rival Diankang sect. But Dudang insists she'll go, ready to put aside old feelings for the sake of her comrades, though she still can't stand Taegyong. The vice leader praises her maturity, explaining that Sagunil is one of the most reasonable members of his sect. Zhongguan chimes in, agreeing that Sagunil is the kind of man even other men admire, fair and cold like a masterwork sword. He's a man who treats everyone with justice, regardless of their sect or strength, a truly impartial warrior. And speak of the devil, Sagunil himself appears, cynically noting how much free time they all have. The tense atmosphere is interrupted by another group, led by the smug Ju Taegyong, the Diankang sword snake. The vice leader explains their leader, Seol Pung, is running late, but Taegyong just smirks at this pointless errand. His lackeys eagerly join in, suggesting Seol Pung is probably too scared of Taegyong to even return. She tries to appeal to their sense of camaraderie, but they just laugh it off. Why worry? If Seol Pung disappears, it's a golden opportunity for their master Taegyong to take over. But the vice leader's expression turns to ice as she completely shuts down that line of thought. She declares that if a successor is needed, she is the one next in line by rank and order. Her bold claim leaves Taegyong's followers sputtering, shocked at the audacity of a mere vice leader. A dangerous aura flares around her as she reminds them exactly who they're running their mouths to. Taegyong's men try to cut in, acknowledging her skill but preparing to add a but. Before they can finish, Taegyong himself steps forward with a condescending smirk. The vice leader calmly admits that yes, she may be lacking in some ways. But with a wry smile, she asks if she's really as lacking as him, a guy who can't even beat Sonu Jin. Taegyong's face twists in disgust. Utterly offended Shed even mentioned that trash as his opponent. She just continues her verbal assault, recalling how Jin didn't seem bothered by him in the slightest. In fact, she remembers Jin calling their little rivalry completely unimportant, a comment that makes Taegyong's blood boil. With a final, sarcastic good luck, she and her subordinate turn and walk away, leaving him seething. But as she leaves, Her confident facade fades, replaced by a flicker of genuine concern. She clenches her fist, realizing Taegyeong has grown stronger and now wonders if Jin can truly handle him. Dudang frets openly, but the vice leader simply apologizes to the arriving team leader Sagunil for the disturbance. Seeing her subordinate's distress, she turns to face her directly. She tries to offer some comfort, reminding Dudang that their own leader, Seolpung, is one of the finest warriors she knows. With a reassuring smile, she suggests they head back to focus on training. Dudang's eyes sparkle, caught off guard by her leader's direct attention. She quickly snaps out of her daze and eagerly agrees, ready to follow her command. But their departure is cut short as another figure steps forward, clearly looking to cause trouble. A man named Zhang Guan suggests they report the situation immediately and form a proper search party. The vice leader coldly dismisses him, stating that as acting leader, the decision is hers alone. He smirks, wondering aloud if another team leader agrees, but she shuts him down, declaring a meeting for tomorrow morning. She whirls on Zhang Guan, furious, accusing him of going behind her back to another squad leader. He just offers a smug grin, claiming his actions were for the good of the team and the entire corps. To her utter dismay, some of her own teammates murmur in agreement with his blatant insubordination. She tries to regain control, but another voice cuts through the tense atmosphere. A new squad has arrived, and their leader sternly agrees that any rotten fruit must be purged immediately. Everyone turns in shock. It's their missing leader, Seolpung, has returned. One of his squad members, Seoyu, immediately rushes to his side, scolding him for being late and worrying everyone. He apologizes warmly, patting her head before turning his attention directly to Miss Na. Seolpung sincerely thanks her for being so concerned, and his simple words break her composure. Overwhelmed with relief, she begins to cry as her leader steps in to comfort her. While the leader apologizes, Jin observes the scene, realizing just how deeply Miss Na cared for her squad. His gaze hardens slightly. Seems their leader managed to return right on cue. But the moment is broken as Zhongguan gets right in Jin's face, sneering that this fight is happening now. Jin, completely unfazed, just throws an arm around the bully, agreeing that he'd love to get this over with. Stunned by the sheer disrespect, Zhongguan shoves him off, snarling that they'll meet in 1 hour. He warns Jin not to run, but our boy just casually stretches, wondering why on earth he would. As Zhongguan storms off, Jin knows exactly where he's going, to gather as many witnesses as possible. A wicked smile spreads across Jin's face. A public spectacle is exactly what he wants too. And just as planned, a huge crowd gathers in the courtyard, buzzing with anticipation for the duel. The commotion has even drawn out other squad leaders, who seem less than pleased by this public display. One of them, the first squad leader Han Gyeosung, smirks, admitting he was getting bored anyway and welcomes the spectacle. He's not alone. The stern-faced leaders of the 3rd, 4th, and 6th squads are also present, observing the unfolding drama. In the center of the courtyard, Jin stands poised and ready, his hand resting calmly on the hilt of his sword. Zhongguan steps forward with a cruel smile, promising not to kill Jin, but to make him wish he could take his own life. Jin, however, is completely unimpressed, waving a hand and telling him to cut the chatter and just get on with it. Absolutely enraged by the disrespect, Zhongguan vows Jin will regret this as his body explodes with a vibrant blue aura. He launches himself into the air, his sword glowing with the same energy, preparing a devastating overhead strike. The attack comes crashing down, aimed to split Jin right down the middle for all to see. But in a blink, Jin is already standing behind him, mockingly asking if all that talk about making a joke of someone was about himself. Zhongguan can only whip his head around in sheer disbelief, his grand attack having met nothing but empty air. Frustrated and humiliated, Zhongguan unleashes a flurry of desperate strikes, but none of them even graze Jin's robes. In the crowd, some of the onlookers can't believe their eyes, muttering about his impossible step techniques. But for Jin, this is all too familiar. He's seen this man's clumsy sword work countless times in his previous life. And now, with movement techniques that have far surpassed what he knew before, Zhongguan can't even touch him. Other squad leaders analyze the fight, noting that while Zhongguan's thrusts are sharp, they're pointless if they never connect. The 3rd squad leader, Tang Yuan, points out the most humiliating fact of all. Jin hasn't even drawn his blade. With the outcome already crystal clear, she turns away, declaring she has no reason to keep watching this farce. The 4th squad leader, Ma Yugyum, glares with cold intensity, his silence a grim confirmation of her judgment. A cold sweat breaks on Zhongguan's brow as the horrible reality of the power gap finally sinks in. He swings again and again, but he's just a child, flailing in the dark as Jin effortlessly weaves between every single attack. Then, Jin just stops, planting his feet firmly on the ground. He casually informs his opponent that until now, he was only using the Bijong sect's movement arts, leaving Zhongguan utterly confused. With the game over, Jin's hand finally moves to the hilt of his sword. Now, he declares with a chilling smirk, he'll be using his own clan's technique, the Seonu 13 swords. In a flash, the very air is shredded by a storm of violent purple sword ki. Zhongguan, who was just on the attack, is now desperately parrying for his life. Jin's eyes glint with predatory confidence as he presses the assault, finding his opponent's retreat utterly foolish. He's pushed back, the sheer force of the blows almost knocking the sword from his hand. Zhongguan can only grit his teeth, screaming at Jin not to get arrogant over a few fancy tricks. But his defiant words are lost in a blinding tempest of sword light as Jin unleashes his true power. A blinding slash of purple energy cuts through the air, completely overwhelming Zhongguan's defense. He's sent flying, his eyes wide with shock at the sheer difference in power. Jin's final strike shatters his guard, a clean, decisive blow that ends the fight instantly. With the tip of a blade at his throat, Zhongguan can only stare in disbelief. This can't be happening. He's left sprawled on the floor, completely defeated as Jin stands over him, the victor. A smug grin spreads across Jin's face as he recalls how this man, Ju Taegyung, was forced to serve him. After losing so pathetically, Ju Taegyung's pride couldn't handle being Jin's subordinate. He hated it so much that he went crawling to his own squad leader, Ma Yugyum, begging for a transfer. This even forced the notoriously prideful Ma Yugyum to bow his head to squad leader Seol Peng. And just like that, Jin not only got rid of Ju Taegyung, but sent all of his little lackeys packing with him. His reasoning was simple. An untrustworthy squad member is worse than no member at all. With that business settled, Jin and his remaining comrades wash up after a hard day of training. The group jokes around, ready to wash off the grime and go grab a meal together. But as they do, Jin notices he's suddenly getting some unexpected attention. A young woman shyly approaches, holding out a delicate, scented handkerchief. He accepts it with a practiced, charming smile, making sure to thank Young by name. The girl and her friends absolutely erupt in delight. He actually remembered her. Jin plays the part of the tragic hero, too sinful to accept her love, much to his friend's annoyance. His brawny comrade is completely lost, wondering why the girls are fawning over him now. But his other friend knows exactly why. It wasn't his looks, it was the duel that earned him this respect. The brawny friend wonders aloud if getting stronger would make him as popular as Jin. Jin just smirks, privately admitting it's a strange but welcome feeling to be seen this way. But their lighthearted moment is cut short by an approaching figure. It's Na Xiaoyu, and she's walking right towards them with a determined look. Later, in a quieter spot, Jin offers her a small, unassuming pouch. She looks at it, confused, as he reveals it's the precious elixir his father gave him. Na Xiaoyu is stunned, immediately refusing such a valuable item, but Jin is firm. He explains that with his own power nearing its peak, the elixir would be wasted on him. Their squad needs more masters at the pinnacle realm, and this is how she'll get there. Moved by his logic, she accepts, vowing to use it to strengthen their team. With a heartfelt smile, she expresses her genuine gratitude to Seonu Jin. Later, as she's finishing her training, Jin approaches her with a new confidence. He reflects on how she used to take care of him, but now things are different. Now that he's a man she can rely on, he imagines a future where they could be more. But his daydream is cut short when she spots a handkerchief in his hand, asking who it's from this time. Jin panics internally, cursing himself for being so careless in front of her. His comrade helpfully blurts out that it was a gift from Young of Squad 3. A flicker of hope sparks in Jin's mind. Could this be the moment that makes her jealous? But her reaction is the exact opposite. She's absolutely beaming with pride over his newfound popularity. She's proud of him like a mother, and with that single blow, all his romantic ambitions shatter into dust. Jin is absolutely reeling from the shock, his mind blanking. All that effort, just to become a good son? Unaware of his turmoil, Na Xiaoyu happily announces they'll get new members in 3 weeks, after the big gathering. Jin's focus snaps to the event. He faintly recalls the new recruits who will eventually join their squad. She proudly continues, boasting that while their squad is small, they have 3 upper first-rate warriors, making them quite formidable. This gets Jin thinking if only he had more elixirs, he could strengthen everyone, but the old master's knowledge is long gone. The scene shifts, a dark reminder of past operations, of a man named Dekam who went into hiding and was never seen again. Just then, a powerful figure approaches, their squad leader Ma Yugyom, his arrival silencing the group. He looks over his squad with a stoic expression, simply asking if their little chat is over. After confirming there were no major announcements, he offers them a choice, good news or bad news. Zudang immediately speaks up for the group, asking to hear the bad news first, so the good news can lift their spirits later. Ma Yugyum delivers the bad news. They're on cleanup duty again, sparking immediate outrage from his squad. He explains the vice captain is just being thorough for the upcoming conference, but Jin knows better. This was the turning point. The conference itself was unremarkable, but everything went to hell right after. It all started when Mei Yo-kyung was found dead, apparently killed by a spider spirit that vanished without a trace. Her lover, Ma Yugyum, began to fall apart, and another vice leader was seduced by the blood cult. The chaos forced the third squad leader, Tang Youn, to cut down her own corrupted subordinate. Jin racks his brain, searching for the hidden connection between all these tragedies that he missed before. But back in the present, Dudang brightly snaps him out of it, eagerly asking for the good news. With a sly grin, Ma Yugyum announces that their vacation has been moved up to next week. The entire squad explodes with joy, the grim memories momentarily forgotten in a wave of pure relief. But amidst the cheers, Jin is stunned. This early vacation never happened in his first life. Ma Yugyum explains that he offered his squad's spot as a gesture of goodwill, feeling he owes them for the trouble with Ju Taegyung. Jin quietly processes this. His actions have already started to change the future. He realizes this is a golden opportunity. Last time, he was on vacation when everything fell apart, unable to do a thing. But now a sly grin spreads across his face as he remembers a certain incident that took place in Guizhou around this time. A squadmate asks Ma Yugyum for his plans, but the stoic leader just intends to stay behind and train. Seizing the moment, Jin grabs him, enthusiastically suggesting they go to Guizhou together. He puts on his most charming act, promising to be the perfect host, hiding his true intentions. His mind flashes back to the beginning of the incident, a conflict between the Black Merchant Union's leader and a renowned physician. And at the center of it all was a disciple of the indestructible sect, a young man named Zhongguan. The leader, Ko Juyong, had promised a hefty reward to the physician Ma Zhongguan for a legendary elixir. But upon seeing its quality, greed won out, and he demanded the esteemed physician join his corrupt union. When Ma Zhongguan refused, the enraged merchant leader began stalking him, searching for any weakness to exploit. The moment the elixir was finished, Ko Juyong's forces ambushed the physician. He barely escaped with the medicine, but his 2 children were captured and held as hostages. But Ma Zhongguan was no ordinary man. He flipped the script, offering his priceless elixir as the bounty for Ko Juyong's head. This forced the merchant's hand, making him hunt the physician before every bounty hunter in the land came for him instead. Listening to this whole story is Zhongguan, who dryly confirms that he understands the situation, but he's clearly not thrilled, asking what any of this has to do with them on their precious vacation. At that, a passionate youth Jin from his past life grabs him, shaming him into action by appealing to the honor of his sect. Zhongguan tries to argue that he's not really orthodox, but Jin cuts him off, declaring that they are here to right a wrong. Still confused, Zhongguan asks why they aren't helping the physician directly, reminding Jin that he was promised a feast. Jin smirks, telling him to think about it. Why would the physician offer the elixir as a bounty instead of bargaining? He paints a grim picture. There was never a guarantee the merchant would free the children, not from a man who could create more priceless elixirs. So, by making it a bounty, the physician devalued his children as hostages, forcing the merchant to focus on the prize alone. The realization finally dawns on Zhongguan. The entire conflict was brilliantly shifted away from the hostages and back to the elixir. But Jin knows the tragic history. In his previous life, this plan only half succeeded. A martial master did wipe out the merchant's men. The victory was meaningless. In retaliation, the merchant leader's son slaughtered Ma Zhongguan's children, turning everything to tragedy. Consumed by grief, the physician then pledged his life to anyone who could annihilate the union, a debt that was eventually paid in blood. Zhongguan now understands their true purpose, to save the children first and prevent that tragic future from ever happening. Zhongguan voices his doubt, questioning how they can possibly take on a major power like the Black Merchant Union. But Jin just smiles, assuring him that thanks to intel from the House sect, he knows their forces are all away. He quickly sketches a map, pinpointing 3 possible locations: the prison, the storage, and the leader's secret chamber. With the plan laid out, he assigns targets for each member of their infiltration team. Zhongguan, feeling left out, finally asks what his role is supposed to be. A sly grin spreads across Jin's face as he declares that Zhongguan has the most important and heaviest task of all. Completely flustered, Zhongguan points to himself, unable to believe he's been given such a crucial role. Meanwhile, we learn of a new player on the board, the Flame Whip Phoenix, a legendary mercenary hired by the Union. Her employer, Ko Juyong, seems far more captivated by her beauty than her renowned martial skill. But she's wise to men like him. always demanding payment up front so she can simply return it and leave when they get creepy. Until now, Ya Wenhyung considered her employer tolerable, but his cruelty towards the physician has made her sick of him. Betraying a loyal man and taking his entire family hostage was a line even she, an unorthodox artist, wouldn't cross. She refused the order to hunt the physician down, deciding to stay and watch how things unfolded. Her mind was made up. She would cut ties with Ko Ju-young the moment he returned. But personal feelings are one thing, and professional duty is another. A job is a job. So when she discovers a prison break in progress, she offers the escapees a simple choice. Go back quietly. The prisoners are stunned, caught completely off guard by the legendary mercenary blocking their path. She warns them that if they choose to resist, she'll have no choice but to get her hands dirty. This is the Blood Whip Shishi, a title earned not just for beauty, but for the countless men who've bled on her whip. But then, a masked man steps forward, vowing to buy time for the others. It's Zhongguan, playing the hero. Ya Wenhyang's eyes narrow on the newcomer, easily deducing he's the one behind this little rebellion. Zhongguan knew there'd be guards, but a woman? He can't help but feel this just got more complicated. With a flick of her wrist, the battle begins, her whip tearing up the earth as he scrambles to evade. Each crack of the whip is a sonic boom, forcing him to weave and dodge for his life. A cruel smile spreads across her face. She's enjoying this far too much. He isn't fast enough. The whip finds its mark, ripping into his side in a spray of blood. He lands hard, clutching the gash, the ground before him completely shredded. A single block has left his entire arm numb. He realizes he cannot afford to take another direct hit. She seems almost impressed he's still on his feet, but Zhongguan is having serious doubts. She cracks her whip again, telling him to run if this is just some misplaced act of heroism. A painful memory surfaces his mother's last moments, a vow that his weakness would never cost another life. But Ya Wenhyang just scoffs, telling him it's his own loss if he dies playing the hero. Done hesitating, Zhongguan finds his center, his resolve hardening like steel. Instead of retreating, he explodes forward, charging directly into the storm of her attacks. Her smug grin falters, replaced by a flicker of genuine surprise as she realizes his eyes are shut. He weaves through the lethal dance of the whip, moving on pure instinct and senses alone. Each thunderous crack misses by a hair's breadth as he closes the distance between them. He glides low to the ground, a blur of red and white against the shredded earth. He isn't watching her moves anymore. He's anticipating them, feeling the very air shift around him. A wicked smile spreads across her face. This just got interesting, and she's ready to unleash hell. With his eyes still shut, Zhongguan slips past another lethal strike, the whip grazing his robes. He's finally closed the distance, rendering her long-range weapon almost useless. Ya Wenhyang scoffs, thinking his approach is playing right into her hands. She was completely expecting this charge, ready for a close-quarters showdown. But then, as he lunges, he flicks his wrist, sending an object spinning through the air. Her eyes widen in shock. A thrown weapon? She instinctively snatches a dagger from its path. A clever feint. She glances at his hand and realizes it was empty all along. But she refuses to lose so easily, bracing herself as his other hand ignites with fiery energy. They collide in a brilliant flash, his blazing palm strike crashing against her desperate block. With a sickening crunch, his power smashes through her defense, landing a devastating blow. But in that split second, his mask is torn away, his face exposed for the first time. Ya Wenhyang sees her chance, spinning with a dagger to capitalize on his mistake. She drives the blade straight for his exposed neck, a perfect, lethal counter. Or so she thought, until he catches the razor-sharp steel between his bare fingers. He's not impressed, just annoyed that he almost let this fight get complicated. With a single, fluid motion, he slams her face first into the dirt, knocking her out cold. But the victory is soured by a chilling realization she saw his face. He remembers the old lesson, a harsh rule drilled into him. Witnesses must be eliminated. Now he stands over her, regretting his moment of mercy that led to this disaster. He closes his eyes, wrestling with the grim duty his own code now demands. His hand tightens on his blade, but he hesitates, a different memory pushing through. The image of his mother, fleeing down a stone corridor, desperate and alone. He makes his choice, launching himself across the rooftops, leaving the assassin behind. But a commotion below stops him cold, his voice a sharp command to halt. His eyes widen, a protective fury igniting at the scene unfolding in the courtyard. He sees them, a group of thugs laughing, preying on helpless women. The prisoners can only watch in terror as his shadow falls over the entire yard. One of the brutes finally looks up, confused, his question cut short by a glint of steel. Because Ju Tae-gyung is already there, landing like a demon of vengeance, his voice seething. Before they can even process the threat, He's a blur of motion, and the first scream tears through the night. Another Union member, enraged, howls as he lunges forward to strike Ju Taegyung down, but the masked assassin remains perfectly still, his gaze sharp and unimpressed. He calmly assesses his opponent, noticing the telltale cloudy aura of sword chi around the blade. The thug's fear instantly twists into a crazed grin. He's realized he's up against a first-rate martial artist. Ju Taegyung knows he can't waste time here. He needs to finish this fight as quickly as possible. His opponent unleashes the heavenly wind step method, moving in a blur of swift, cutting strikes. The man scoffs, confident his speed has caught the mysterious intruder completely off guard. But his blade is met with a firm block, Ju Taegyung effortlessly parrying the rapid assault. Steel clashes against steel in a dizzying dance of lethal speed and precision. Then, with a roar, Ju Taegyung shatters his guard with a single, overwhelming blow. The Union member's eyes widen as he spots the weakness. This intruder can't use blade chi. A smug grin spreads across his face, mocking him for being a mere second-rate lackey despite his speed. The jab hits a nerve. Ju Taegyung has to admit, the man is quick-witted. He grips his sword, the frustrating truth of his own limitations stinging him deeply. A memory flashes by 40 years of training, yet always falling short, unable to grasp that next level of power his peers achieved. Snapping back to the present, his opponent starts screaming for backup, threatening to ruin the entire mission. Done with the condescending taunts, Ju Taegyung unleashes a furious counterattack. The thug is caught completely off guard, stumbling back from the sheer force of the blow. And in that moment of overwhelming power, a realization dawns on Ju Taegyung. This man might be first-rate, but he's a pale imitation of the true masters he's fought before. Compared to the real monsters he's faced, Doc Sugwang scoffs internally. This kid is far too slow. But across from him, Ju Taegyung's eyes gleam with a newfound confidence. He realizes this difference in skill is a gap he can actually overcome. With a surge of adrenaline, Ju Taegyung closes the distance, his blade a blur of motion. The arrogant thug is caught off guard, forced to push his own speed to keep up. How is this happening? He's supposed to be leagues above this nobody. He pours more power into his movements, demanding his body move even faster. But Ju Taegyung is like a phantom, weaving through the attacks with impossible agility. "You annoying damn fly!" Doc Sugwang roars, his composure completely shattered. The fight accelerates into a dizzying clash of steel as Ju Taegyung relentlessly presses his attack. With a final, wet thud, Doc Sugwang hits the floor, defeated. Ju Taegyung stares at his blade, a wild grin spreading across his face. So this is the power of blade chi. A young woman cries out, calling him a hero and pleading for his help. He approaches the two captives, asking if they are the daughters of the life and death physician. She confirms she is, but clarifies that the other person is her brother. She's the only daughter. The second damsel then speaks, confirming with a soft voice that he is, in fact, a man. Ju Taegyung's heroic composure completely evaporates, his mind going blank. His eyes dart back to the bodies of the thugs he just took down, a horrible thought dawning on him. The brother shyly admits that the men, well, they said he was pretty. They wanted him for themselves, and Ju Taegyung is hit with the mortifying realization of what really happened here. Shaking off his mortification, Ju Taegyung tells them this is no place to talk and they need to leave immediately. They arrive at the designated safe point, a quiet local shrine where his team is waiting. And there's Bei Zhongguan, not a scratch on him, laughing about how he just gave some guy a demonstration of his physical arts. With everyone regrouped, he checks on the physician's children. The son is still completely lost in shock. The daughter thanks him profusely, saying they thought it was all over when their father abandoned them. Hearing this, Ju Taegyung's expression shifts. He realizes she has it all wrong. He turns to her, with Li Jin-sung looking on, and begins to explain her father's true, incredible plan. The physician didn't trade his children away. He deliberately made them seem like a low-value bounty. This masterfully diverted the enemy's focus to him, avoiding a trap that would have enslaved them all. Li Jin-sung reinforces the point, telling them they were only saved thanks to their father's wisdom. Ju Taegyung adds that deep down, they must have known their father would never abandon them over mere elixirs. But the daughter confesses they truly didn't know, and would have died resenting him without their help. With the air cleared, the physician's son is all smiles, eager to get on with rescuing their father. But before they can leave, Ju Taegyung interrupts, telling them to check out what he's brought. He unveils a massive pile of custom weapons in gold, casually calling them presents. The first gift is for the son, a wicked claw weapon modeled after a legendary unorthodox artifact. Li Jin-sung gets a throwing knife paired with an unbreakable silver wire, perfect for his fighting style. And finally, for the team's tank, Bei Zhongguan, he reveals a massive, 80-pound convertible spear. But Bei Zhongguan proudly puffs out his chest, boasting that his body is the only weapon he needs. Ju Taegyung just smiles, playing along before asking him a simple question. With his physique and that spear, who would he remind people of? None other than the god of war, Guan Yu. The legendary warrior's image flashes through Bei Zhongguan's mind, and Ju Taegyung adds the final touch, wondering what Miss Cheon would think. And just like that, the big guy is lost in a daydream, completely sold on his new, heroic image. With everyone else equipped, the physician's son and Li Jinsung ask what Ju Taegyung found for himself. He smirks, assuring them he found the perfect blade while he was out. He reveals a fantastic sword with an ornate, beast-like hilt, impressing the others. With their preparations complete, he sets the plan. Bei Zhongguan will protect the physician's children while the main trio infiltrates. Ju Taegyung warns Li Jinsung not to be reckless, but the kid just smirks, proud of his new first-rate status. As the team is about to depart, Ju Taegyung stops them with a sudden thought. With a sly grin, he offers them a little pre-mission snack, a box containing 4 powerful elixirs. Now moving alone, Ju Taegyung feels confident, knowing Bei Zhongguan is powered up and can handle himself. His thoughts drift to the others. Li Jinsung is fast, and the squad leader is a monster in his own right. He halts his advance as he spots a group of Black Merchant Union grunts up ahead. He quickly assesses their strength, mostly second-rate fighters, with a mid-first-rate leader. A direct fight would just attract unwanted attention, so he'll have to get creative. A wicked smile spreads across his face as he pulls out a small bag, ready to unleash his little cuties. The patrol leader barks at his men, worried they're running out of time before sunrise. Suddenly, his grunts freeze as venomous snakes begin coiling around their bodies. One of them just stares, confused for a fatal second. A snake? Before he can react, the viper strikes, sinking its fangs deep into his neck. The man collapses, convulsing violently as the poison floods his system, sparking panic in the ranks. Their leader scoffs, enraged that a couple of mere snakes are causing such a fuss. But as he yells, his eyes catch a flicker of movement, a phantom wreathed in purple descending from above. A flicker of dawning horror crosses his face. In a single, devastating flash of purple light, Ju Taegyung cuts through the entire patrol. He lands softly amidst the bodies, the forest now deathly silent. A smug grin spreads across Ju Taegyung's face. This sword cuts through flesh like a scythe through grass. He handled that entire patrol without causing a scene, a massive improvement from his past life. With a whisper, he praises his poison vipers for a job well done. But his satisfaction is shattered by a distant sound that puts him on high alert. Damn it, have they already found the life and death physician? He bolts through the trees. He arrives at a clearing to see his worst fears realized. The physician is cornered by dozens of warriors. Peering from the shadows, Ju Taegyung counts at least 30 men, and their leader is already gloating. That leader, Dong Paegyong, announces Hez here on his elder brother's command to break the physician's legs. The name rings a bell. One of the 4 heavenly kings of the Black Merchant sect, all sworn brothers and pinnacle masters. To think 4 such powerful warriors would gather in a backwater place like this, something is seriously wrong. This is why the blood cult's promise of rapid growth is so alluring. True pinnacle masters are exceptionally rare. And of course, one such master just had to be the one to find the physician first, leaving Taegyung completely outmatched and alone. But just as Hez weighing his options, a sound from behind puts him on instant alert someone's coming. He can tell from their clumsy footsteps they're just second-rate fodder, but he realizes with a jolt they must have found the bodies he left. Damn it, if he's discovered here, the entire mission falls apart. Should he just retreat? But as the approaching patrol comes into view, a word sparks an idea in his mind: rendezvous. A wicked little smile spreads across his face. Oh yes, he sees it now. This could be the perfect breakthrough. After all, Dong Paegyong is the 4th sworn brother of the Black Merchant sect, a monster with 70 years of internal energy. It was the combined might of him and his 3 brothers that made their sect a dominant power in the entire region. And this powerhouse is dead set on capturing the physician, seeing him not as a person, but as a living elixir factory for endless profit. And so the 4th heavenly king, Dong Paegyong, corners his prize, offering the physician a magnanimous chance to surrender. But the life and death physician, Ma Zhongwan, is having none of it, spitting fury at the beasts who'd kidnap children for profit. Dong Paegyong just smirks, finding the old man's defiance utterly amusing, as if a cornered mouse just roared at a tiger. With a roar of his own, the physician presses a dagger to his throat. They can have him, but only as a corpse. Suddenly, the smug confidence wavers. Dong Paegyong tries to talk him down, but the old man refuses to negotiate with kidnappers. So he resorts to threats, reminding the physician that his children's fate is tied to his cooperation. Ma Zhonghuan scoffs. His life is clearly precious enough for them to go this far, and he's ready to end it all right here. He begins a countdown, his voice ringing through the clearing. 1, 2, the merchants don't dare move a muscle. Dong Paegyong grits his teeth in frustration. He thought he had the man completely trapped, but this is a stalemate he can't afford. But just as the count reaches 4, one of his subordinates rushes in, screaming for the third protector with urgent news. The man screams they're under attack, snapping Dong Paegyong's attention away from his hostage. But the old physician is still lost in his own world, continuing the countdown to his own demise. And that split second of chaos is the exact opening Ju Taegyong has been waiting for. He springs from the ground, launching a volley of sharp projectiles directly at the stunned Heavenly King. Dong Paegyong's face twists in disbelief. The downed prisoner was the true threat all along. Before anyone can react, Taegyong becomes a blur of motion, cutting down the surrounding guards in a single devastating sweep. The physician, utterly bewildered by the sudden massacre, screams for him to stop, but his confusion turns to shock as a hidden ally reports that his children have been rescued. In the next moment, Taegyong is already scooping up the dazed old man, beginning their escape. Enraged at being so thoroughly outplayed, Dong Paegyong vows they won't get away that easily. With a furious leap, Dong Paegyong launches himself from the crater, chasing them down with murderous intent. He screams at his men to signal his brother, vowing that the fugitives absolutely will not escape. Taegyong smirks to himself. What a fool, abandoning his own men just to chase them personally. As they bound across the desolate landscape, he throws a small object far ahead, setting up the next stage of his plan. The physician, still in shock, grabs him and asks if it's really true are his son and daughter safe. Of course, Taegyong replies, adding that the old man deliberately made a scene hoping someone would come to his aid. And indeed they did. Elsewhere, his children are safe and sound under the protection of Bei Zhongguan and Li Jinsung, but their pursuer is closing in fast, his enraged shouts echoing through the night. Taegyong knows he can't shake a pinnacle master while carrying someone, not with this speed difference. The physician asks if he has a plan, but Taegyong's focus is singular, getting the old man to safety, no matter what. The physician sheepishly admits there was no grand plan. He simply gambled on his enemy's greed. Taegyong smirks a sharp judgment, indeed. In his past life, the old man escaped on his own. But against a pinnacle master like Dong Paegyong, escape seems impossible. Is abandoning the physician the only option? A brilliant, almost manic idea sparks in Taegyong's mind as he asks the elder for a certain something. 2 small pouches are tossed back into the night, a new trap being set. Dong Paegyong growls in frustration, his pride wounded that he can't catch a man carrying a body. He briefly considers ending it with a hidden weapon to the man's back, but he hesitates, realizing the physician has been immobilized and could be hurt in the process. Just then, Taegyong's voice echoes through the forest, calling out to negotiate. A cruel smile spreads across Dong Paegyong's face. Hez exhausted, he thinks, ready to hear him beg. Taegyong lays out his terms. He just wants 2 elixirs, and in return, he'll leave the physician. Dong Paegyong weighs his options. Killing the boy would be satisfying, but the physician's life is the priority. Fine, he agrees, shouting for Taegyong to stop running. The deal is on. Both fighters touch down in a moonlit clearing, the frantic chase finally coming to a halt. With surprising care, Taegyong lays the unconscious elder on the ground. A sly, confident smile spreads across his face as he promises to back off now. Dong Paegyong watches him retreat, barking at him to get lost, his prize just a few steps away. He strides forward, his victory assured, ready to claim the life and death physician. But from the tree line, Taegyong's eyes flash with cold intent. The moment is now. Suddenly, a storm of daggers flies through the air, aimed not at the Heavenly King, but at the helpless physician. Paltry tricks, Dong Paegyong scoffs, effortlessly deflecting the blades aimed at his prize. He laughs maniacally, mocking the sheer audacity of using hidden weapons against a master like him. With a flick of his wrist, he returns fire, launching his own lethal projectiles straight back. Taegyong is forced on the defensive, his shadow arts barely keeping him ahead of the deadly barrage. The Heavenly King's grin widens. He doesn't believe for a second that this kid can get away. He admits Taegyong's movement arts are decent, but that's where the compliments end. How long can he possibly keep running from Dong Paegyong, one of the sect's strongest pillars? In a desperate move, Taegyong's energy swirls into a dark, disorienting vortex. He launches himself high into the air, but to the veteran's eyes, Hez just cornered himself. A triumphant, predatory smile spreads across Dong Paegyong's face. He was waiting for this. With a triumphant roar, Dong Paegyong descends from the sky, unleashing what he believes is the final blow. But Taegyong isn't cornered at all. He meets the attack head-on with a confident smirk. The Heavenly King declares this is the end, but the tables have already turned without him realizing it. His confident expression finally shatters as a cold dread washes over him. Something is wrong. He glances down to find a venomous, tri-colored snake coiled casually around his neck. And look who's awake, the life-and-death physician, taunting him to see if a poison expert can handle his little pet. The Heavenly King's face contorts in rage and agony as the fast-acting venom floods his system. In that fatal moment of distraction, Taegyong closes the distance, plunging his blade deep into the man's throat. One of the pinnacle masters of the Black Merchant sect collapses to the ground, his life extinguished. Taegyong coolly inspects his blade, glad he used a generic sword to keep his identity hidden. The plan worked flawlessly. With the immediate threat handled, Taegyong checks on his temporary ally, who confirms he's fine. But the physician's mind is reeling, unable to comprehend the sheer level of talent this young man possesses. He's never heard of a master this young and this powerful, and he presses Taegyong for his identity. Taegyong calmly delivers his cover story, introducing himself as Seonu Jin of the legendary Soaring Dragon Corps. The prestigious name stuns the old doctor, but just as he starts to connect the dots, his mind catches on a detail. Before he can voice his new suspicion, Taegyong cuts him off with a shushing motion. The brief moment of peace is over. He can sense enemies closing in from all sides. With a confident glint in his eye, Taegyong points toward their escape route, right back through the chaos he created. And right on cue, the next wave of Black Merchant goons spots them, their shouts echoing through the forest. Without a second to waste, the unlikely duo makes a break for it, dashing through the moonlit trees. A new pursuer, Han Joksam of the Black Mountain Mace, orders his men to surround them and throw everything they have. Taegyong dodges effortlessly, thinking this new guy must be an idiot, forgetting the doctor needs to be captured alive. Then, one of the goons finally spots his sword, demanding to know how he got his hands on the legendary Black Wolf sword. The panicked leader just screams at them to keep throwing weapons, not to lose their targets. So the chase continues, with Taegyong leaping through the forest, a swarm of pursuers just behind him. With the physician clinging on for dear life, Taegyong decides he's had enough, unleashing a storm of glowing purple blades. The projectiles find their marks instantly, tearing through the Black Merchant grunts who fall with cries of agony. He lands gracefully in a clearing, the remaining pursuers hesitating for just a moment. Taegyong quickly assesses the remaining few. They're not strong, but carrying the old man is affecting his balance. A minor inconvenience, really, as he fluidly cuts down another enemy, continuing his relentless push forward. From the back of the pack, Han Joksam roars, promising that Taegyong will not leave this forest alive. But worse, more reinforcements have arrived, and they've identified his passenger as the physician, Ma Zhongwan. Leading the new group is none other than the Black Merchant Union leader Ko Ju-yong, who commands his men to seal the escape route. Taegyong's mind races. With pinnacle masters approaching from multiple sides, he's glad he ran west, but even he knows the terrifying rumor of Ko Ju-yong's 90 years of chi. His escape comes to an abrupt halt as the path opens up to a sheer cliff face, a dead end. The pursuers close in fast, with Ko Ju-yong ordering his men to spread out, boxing them in against the drop. The physician offers a desperate plan. Leave him at the edge to buy time for Taegyong's escape. Taegyong briefly considers it, remembering that in his past life, the old man had somehow killed Ko Ju-yong alone, but this time is different. He looks back at the physician, asking if the old man trusts him, receiving a hesitant, confused yes. Then leave it to me, Taegyong declares, leaving the physician utterly baffled by his unshakable confidence. Before the physician can even process what's happening, Taegyong makes his move. He grabs the old man and, to his utter horror, leaps directly off the sheer cliff face. The physician screams, flailing in terror as they plummet into the abyss. But Taegyong's grip is like iron, holding him steady in their shared descent. Then, in a stunning display of strength, he hurls the physician back up towards the cliff top. The old man goes flying, his mind reeling from the absolute insanity of this plan. Now, falling alone, Taegyong looks up, silently telling the physician to stay calm. His own mind finds a point of perfect focus, preparing for what comes next. He visualizes the impact, planning to channel the shock from his toes all the way up his legs. Every muscle will flex in unison, distributing the lethal force across his entire body. He slams into the ground below, the impact shaking him to the bone. But the plan worked, and a triumphant grin spreads across his face as he lands in a crouch. Now for part 2, as the screaming physician comes hurtling down from above. Taegyong leaps, catching the old man in a perfect display of strength and timing. He asks if he's all right, but the physician is too shell-shocked to even answer. But Taegyong's momentary pride is shattered by a condescending laugh. A smug voice declares that this little escape was entirely predictable. It's an ambush. led by a man with a chilling, painted smile, Gak Kihyo, second brother of the Black Light Wheel. He gloats, boasting that Taejong's every move has been within the palm of his hand. Taejong can only grit his teeth, realizing he's just jumped from one trap straight into another. Surrounded on all sides, Taegyung stands trapped with the old man in his arms. The physician urges him to escape alone, insisting they'll only kill Taegyung. But then a voice roars from the clifftop, a command that shakes the entire forest. Taejong's eyes snap wide in recognition. He knows that voice from his past life. With renewed hope, he tells the physician to hold on tight and makes a desperate run for it. Gak Kihyo merely cackles, mocking his futile escape and ordering his men to close in. Taegyung dashes through the trees, the Black Merchant Union hot on his heels. Suddenly, a devastating slash cuts through the air, felling his pursuers instantly. A whirlwind of crimson hair and steel erupts from the shadows. It's Han Jeoksam. Gak Kihyo's arrogant smirk completely evaporates, his perfect ambush now in shambles. Wasting no time, Han Jeoksam lunges forward to press his sudden advantage. Seeing the perfect opening, Taegyung gives the signal to coordinate the assault. Gak Kihyo grits his teeth, barely deflecting a flurry of attacks, utterly furious. But the red-haired warrior is relentless, already leaping through the air for another strike. He comes crashing down with overwhelming force, aimed directly at his opponent. The ground shatters as Gak Kihyo is slammed into the dirt, completely overpowered. He scrambles back, swinging his ring weapon wildly to create some breathing room. But his frantic attack is easily dodged, and he's rewarded with a fist to the face. Sweating and desperate, he raises his weapon to block the next incoming blow. It's useless, as Han Jeoksam's punch smashes right through his defense. The man realizes with dawning horror that his opponent is on a completely different level. His only thought is to create some distance, to get away from this monster. But Ju Taegyung is already inside his guard, grabbing his arm before he can even react. In a fluid motion, he vaults over the man's head, becoming a deadly blur. The mercenary stumbles back, clutching a face that's been torn open. He collapses to the ground without another sound as Ju Taegyung lands softly behind him. Just then, a patrol arrives, crying out in shock to see their second brother taken down so easily. Taegyung turns to face them, an unbothered, almost bored expression on his face. The patrol members are frozen in place, a cold sweat breaking out as they stare him down. And to make matters worse, backup arrives for Taejung, as Lee Jin-sung apologizes for being late. Lee Jin-sung smirks, telling the stunned patrol that they are, in fact, right on time. Suddenly, the Black Merchant Union's leader, Ko Ju-young, explodes from the trees, roaring about his second brother Gak being harmed. Taejung knows they can't afford to stick around, telling his allies to follow him immediately. With the injured Gak Kihyo slung over his shoulder, Taegyung leads the desperate retreat toward a nearby river. As they reach the rapids, one of Jin-sung's men points to a rope he's secured, warning that the current is far too dangerous to swim. A single rope now spans the treacherous water, their only path to shaking off their pursuers. But Gak Kihyo raises a good point. Once they're across, what about the last man? How will he escape? The squad mate just grins, brushing off the concern and urging them to start crossing. Gak Kihyo has no choice but to put his faith in these strangers, figuring their movement arts must be impressive. Trusting the plan, Taegyung goes first, deftly starting his journey across the makeshift rope bridge. On their heels, Ko Ju-young and his men scream bloody murder, vowing to gnaw on their bones. Across the river, the rest of the group shouts for their last man, Sayoung, to hurry up and cross, but Sayoung has no intention of using the rope. Instead, he plants a long staff firmly into the riverbank. Using it as a lever, he launches himself into the air, pole vaulting over the raging rapids. Taejung and Jin-sung can only stare, their minds completely blown by this unexpected maneuver. He soars through the night sky, a confident smirk plastered on his face. The flexible staff whips back and forth, propelling him effortlessly across the wide expanse of water. Just as Ko Ju-young's forces arrive, they're greeted by the impossible sight, stopping dead in their tracks. Sayoung lands perfectly among his allies, who can't believe what they just witnessed. He just grins, explaining that for a great disciple of the Bijong sect, this is just basic movement. Lee Jin-sung urges them to move, knowing they aren't safe on the riverbank for long. Deeper in the woods, the group finally finds a clearing to catch their breath. The life and death physician formally thanks Taegyung and the squad leader for saving his children. While Jin-sung stammers that he was just following orders, Taejung calmly accepts the praise. Jin-sung asks for the plan, wondering where their pursuers will likely cross the river. A cunning glint appears in Taejung's eyes as he reveals they're going back across, but downstream. The others are stunned. Why would they double back instead of just running for their lives? Taegyung explains there is no escape. The Union saw their faces and will hunt the physician relentlessly. They can't just fight a war of attrition. The allure of the physician's elixir will draw endless enemies. So, he lays out the real strategy. They need to trick the world into thinking the rescue failed. Jin Sung calls the plan to trick and eliminate their pursuers evil, but Taegyung just smiles, saying he simply treats evil people accordingly. The squad leader has a more pressing concern. Their vacation is almost over, and they only have 3 days left for this little side quest. But Taegyung's confidence is unshakable. He promises it'll all be wrapped up in just 2. And just as he predicted, the very next day, the Black Merchant Union finds them, and they allow themselves to be cornered deep in the forest. The Union members close in, yelling that there's no escape this time. Completely oblivious, they've walked right into a trap. Jin Sung assesses their numbers. He figures they could easily break through this encirclement if they had to. But before a single sword is drawn, a new voice cuts through the tension, shocked that the physician has already been rescued. Everyone looks up to see a mysterious woman perched in the trees, watching the entire scene unfold. A smirk plays on Taegyung's lips. The third party he was waiting for has finally arrived right on schedule. The woman puts on a convincing show of dismay, loudly questioning how this could have happened, playing her role to perfection. She lands with a flourish, feigning surprise that they've not only rescued the physician, but are also after the legendary pill. But Jin Sung cuts her off, stating coldly that the rescue isn't over as long as the physician is still a target. The woman just smiles, sidling up to him with a proposition. What if she wipes them all out and takes credit for the rescue herself? The physician eyes Jin Sung, the gears turning in his head as he weighs this unexpected offer. He then speaks up, giving credit where it's due but admitting that anyone who eliminates the future threat is, in essence, also his savior. The woman's face lights up with a wicked grin. "Great," she says. "I'll take it." With a promise for them to just wait a moment, she vanishes from sight in a flash. The others are left stunned, wondering what kind of phantom movement technique they just witnessed. Jin Sung stares into the empty space, a flicker of recognition in his eyes as he tries to place her. But Taegyung isn't just curious. A single drop of sweat betrays a sense of deep, personal dread. He knows exactly who she is. Taegyung's face pales, the horrifying truth of her identity finally clicking into place. Before he can warn anyone, Jin Sung shouts and points, his eyes wide with disbelief. Because there, hanging effortlessly in the night sky, is the woman, performing the legendary Void Walk. She looks down on the Black Merchant Union leaders with a condescending smirk, deciding they're bad news who won't be missed. Ko Ju-young and Han Jaksum are completely bewildered, stammering in confusion at her sudden appearance. But she gives them no time to think, raising a hand as a terrifying sphere of crimson aura begins to form. The sheer scale of the energy finally triggers a memory in Ko Ju-young, that youthful face, that power he knows who she is. With a deafening roar, the orb of pure destruction detonates. The leaders are caught in the blast, their screams swallowed by the overwhelming force. And in a flash, the entire area is consumed by a swirling vortex of red energy. When the dust settles, the few remaining grunts from the Union are left trembling in absolute terror. The woman lands before Ju Taegyung's group, musing that she can't be bothered with small fry, unless they want her to. The life and death physician, stammering, quickly assures her that's not necessary before asking who she is. She points to herself with a sly, knowing grin, introducing herself as Son Un Song. The name hits Lee Jin Sung like a lightning bolt, who grabs his friend's face, gushing that the legendary beauty is real. Son Un Song is amused by the boy's fast hands and even faster mouth, deciding she likes his handsome face. Her full title echoes in the air, Son Un Song, the youthful lust demon, one of the 4 great demons of a bygone era. The physician warily asks if she, too, came for his pill, but she casually denies it, explaining she needs a different kind of help. Help? The old man's face tightens with suspicion, wondering what a being of her stature could possibly want from him. She leans in with an almost shy expression, admitting her grand quest is to find a way to stop aging. Ju Taegyung and the others are completely baffled. What does she mean she wants to stop aging? Her title, the youthful lust demon, was earned through a dual cultivation art, a technique that preserved her youth by draining others. She was a legend who walked the world freely, a monster so powerful that no one dared stand in her way. Lee Jin Sung realizes the rumors were true. She wasn't just ageless, she seemed to be getting younger. But with a weary sigh, she confesses that she's actually sick of her youth. Her mind has aged, but her body is trapped. She'd spent a decade investigating her own arts, assuming it was a flaw in her internal energy, but hit a wall. So she came to a new conclusion. What she needed was a deep understanding of the body, which the physician correctly identifies as medicine. He understands now she wants his help with research. She promises it will only be for 1 year, and she will follow him anywhere. Son Un-sang looks at him expectantly, asking if he will accept her deal, leaving the old man frozen in thought. Just then, Ju Taegyung steps forward, advising the physician that it would be best to grant her request. He reminds the physician that he owes Sun Unsong a debt for wiping out the Black Merchant Union. But more importantly, Ju Taegyung argues, this is for his own safety now that the world knows about his life and death pill. Without her protection, others might threaten his family, and besides, she's known for never breaking a promise or harming an innocent. Though she's a lust demon, Ju Taegyung muses that her unwavering convictions are what truly draw people to her. Sun Unsang is impressed, noting how open-minded he is for someone who looks like he's from a righteous sect. She steps closer, a playful glint in her eyes, telling him she really likes his handsome face and clever mind. Then she turns to both him and Lee Jin-sung with a devilish grin, offering them a fiery night together. Ju Taegyung can't help but blush, thinking that the rumors didn't do her justice. She's even more stunning up close. He admits to himself that it would be hard for any man to possibly refuse her invitation. Lee Jin-sung, on the other hand, is completely shell-shocked, sweating bullets at the absurd proposition. Lee Jin-sung, with a strained smile, politely declines her offer, saying they wouldn't dare presume. Sun Unsang is impressed by his unwavering mind, but lets him know her offer is always on the table. Seizing the opportunity, Ju Taegyung pushes her to grant the physician's request, slyly mentioning she might have a husband the next time they meet. He knows this because in his past life, she wiped out the Black Merchant faction at the physician's request. That very event brought them together, leading to a marriage that became a famous story in the martial world. Of course, Ju Taegyung muses that there's no guarantee this timeline will follow the same path. With the situation now resolved, the grateful physician gives them 7 extra life and death pills, vowing to never forget the favor. As they part ways, it seems the physician's son and the brawny Baejongwan have become quite close, and his daughter has clearly taken a liking to the young warrior she calls Brother Bai. She boldly promises to come find him when she turns 20, leaving the poor guy completely flustered. The others immediately start teasing poor Brother Bai, laughing about how he stole a young lady's heart. But Lee Jin-sung cuts through the jokes, calling out to him by his real name, Sa Yong. He pulls him aside, offering a heavy bag of coins head set apart from everyone else's share. It's ill-gotten wealth from the black merchants, he explains, so it's best used for a good cause like Sa Yong's sect. Sa Yong is left completely stunned by the sudden, thoughtful gesture. Not to be outdone, Ju Taegyung and Baejongwan both declare they're chipping in their shares too. The weight of their camaraderie hits him hard, and tears well up in his eyes. He tries to deny it, angrily wiping his face and shouting that he's not touched at all. But their adventure is already making waves, as news of their deeds in Guizhou spreads like an arrow. All the nearby sects, long oppressed by the black merchant faction, rise up at once to hunt down the survivors. An era of shifting power had begun across the martial world, and with the fall of the black merchants, the names of 3 new heroes emerged. Hailed as the chivalrous heroes of Guizhou, their righteous spirits sparked a revolution. Bisa Yong, who rattled the enemy with his peerless movement, was dubbed the Gale Flying Hawk. Ju Taegyung, the man who saved the life and death physician and slew a heavenly king, became the Flying Black Wolf. And their captain, who killed the Blacklight Dragon in an instant, reclaimed his legendary title from a past life, the Gale Flying Dragon. That very name, Gale Flying Dragon, echoes in a tavern far from the fighting. It catches the ear of Sun Unsang, the youthful lust demon, who finds this development very interesting indeed. Elsewhere, Brother Bai swirls his drink, listing off the 3 legendary aliases. He lets out a quiet sigh, a wave of regret washing over him for not being there to join the fun. But elsewhere, a different storm is brewing, as a woman named Chong Yun suspects a hidden power is at play. She believes the Murim Alliance itself is suppressing the truth, and she won't stand for it, cost be damned. If the so-called righteous faction is acting this corrupt, she knows she has a duty to expose them. But those heavy thoughts melt away as she arrives home to a warm welcome from her squad. A young warrior named Eunan excitedly tells her they've gathered enough elixirs for her to finally level up. One of the men smirks, telling her that now that she's here, they can reveal the real reward. They plundered the black merchant faction's entire storehouse, a mountain of ownerless treasures just waiting to be used. Better yet, the divine physician gifted them 7 life and death pills, each one a priceless treasure. Jeong Yun is stunned, asking how they could possibly just hand out something so incredibly valuable. Her second-in-command just smiles, explaining that pills are just things, but the people in this room, they're truly precious. He then announces another surprise, a special gift prepared just for the ladies. On the table sits a fine white sword, a Heidong Huando, and protective iron-woven garments. He smiles, telling the three of them to feel free and pick whichever one they want. Ju Eun points out that while she uses a blade, she already has her treasured sword, Yun Hong. Chong Yun immediately sees his intent. The white sword is meant to pair with his own black one. Touched by the transparent but sweet gesture, she smiles and happily claims the white sword for herself. That settles it. Yuan excitedly grabs the huando, and their quiet companion Yun takes the protective gear. Ju Taegyung lets out a relieved laugh, pleased that everything went according to his plan. But just then, Yan steps forward, offering her own sheathed sword to Cheong Yun. Chong Yun is stunned, asking why she'd give away her favorite blade, but Yun insists that Yun Hong must meet a worthy master. Chong Yun holds up her new blade with a satisfied smile, saying it fits her so well she's already named it Baekhyun. Yun watches on, admitting that while she's a little sad she couldn't give her old sword away as planned, seeing Chong Yun this happy is more than enough. Just then, a warrior approaches, stunned by Bisa Young's sudden leap in skill and demanding to know how the Gale Flying Hawk did it. Ju Taegyung coolly explains it as a moment of sudden enlightenment, while Bisa Young dismisses a request for a spar, saying it's beneath him to fight someone without an alias. The nameless warrior can only laugh awkwardly, accepting the public putdown. But his place is immediately taken by a new challenger, one with a cocky grin who introduces himself as the Swift Monkey, One Cheong One, formally requesting a duel. Now this is more like it. Bisa Young grins back, acknowledging the Swift Monkey's reputation and eagerly accepting the match. Without a moment's hesitation, One Chong One launches himself forward, kicking up a cloud of dust as he closes the gap. He unleashes a powerful sweeping slash meant to cut his opponent in two, but the Gale Flying Hawk is already gone. Bisa Young effortlessly slips past the attack, appearing behind One Cheong One before his blade has even finished its swing. The Swift Monkey immediately puts his reputation to the test, clashing blades with the Gale Flying Hawk in a blur of motion. Hess genuinely impressed, acknowledging his opponent's speed before promising to get serious. One Chong One unleashes a flurry of acrobatic slashes, a whirlwind of steel designed to overwhelm and shred. But Bisa Young simply isn't there, weaving through the attacks and landing with a casual kick of a pebble. He laughs, taunting that while the Swift Monkey's sword is exhilarating, it fell a little short of actually hitting him. Watching from the side, Ju Taegyung notes that while One Chong One is stronger, subduing the new and improved Bisa Young won't be easy. His thoughts are interrupted by a voice calling his name, remarking on how free he seems. It's Chong Yun, stepping forward with a bright smile, asking if he'd like to spar now that he has some time. A confident, almost predatory, grin spreads across Ju Taegyung's face as he accepts her challenge. Meanwhile, Lee Jin-sung observes from afar, astounded at how this ragtag group has transformed into a powerful unit in only 4 months. He clenches his fists in bitter regret, realizing he let a true prodigy, a phoenix, slip right through his fingers. One of his underlings sees his frustration and tries to stir the pot, claiming no one could improve that fast without cheating. The subordinate insists that Ju Taegyung's power spike after the jungle mission can only be explained by the blood cult's evil arts. He's absolutely certain, accusing their new ally of being hypnotized or, worse, having joined the demonic fiends. Lee Jin-sung, however, is unconvinced. He calmly asks what Ju Taegyung's stated purpose was for going into the jungle. The subordinate sweats, admitting it was to gather information which only enrages Lee Jin-sung, who snaps that's exactly what you do to fight the blood cult. He demands to know if the man's eyes are just for decoration, questioning how he could spout such nonsense after seeing Ju Taegyung's actions firsthand. Lee Jin-sung grabs him by the collar, accusing him of trying to frame a hero out of nothing more than petty jealousy. His grip tightens, a silent, furious punctuation to his words. Leaning in close, he asks the terrified man if he knows the most painful reason their sect was wiped out. It was because of weak, envious fools just like him. Tears well up in Lee Jin-sung's eyes as he admits his own misery forced to keep trash around just because they're survivors. With a final, disgusted shove, he releases the subordinate. He turns away, his mind set. To rebuild their sect, they need outstanding talent, not jealous fools. But his path is a lonely one. As the head disciple, he lacks the prestige to rally anyone, especially since his own father led them to ruin. Worse, 2 warriors are already considered his superiors, and neither of them is on his side. He clenches his fist in frustration alone. This is impossible. To unite them, he needs the strength of at least one. So, swallowing his pride, he approaches a man meditating beneath a tree. Sa Gunil, the second squad captain, also known as the Jumchang Sword Dragon. Lee Jin-sung doesn't care if no one acknowledges him personally, not anymore. All that matters is their sect's survival, and for that, he desperately needs the Sword Dragon's help. To Lee Jin-sung's shock, The sword dragon offers the very words he hoped for, pledging to support him as leader. A wave of relief washes over him as he immediately begs Sa-gun-il to act. He pleads with everything he has, urging him to move for the sake of their fallen sect, Chong. The sword dragon merely looks on, calmly remarking on how much the young man has changed. But then the other shoe drops despite that change. His answer is still a firm no. He won't lift a finger for their revival. Li Jinsung's face twists in utter disbelief and rage, the sudden betrayal stinging him to his core. He demands to know how Sa-gun-il could possibly turn his back on the sect that gave him everything. But the sword dragon counters with a chilling question. Does Chong even have the right to rise again? He explains that he's agonized over this, but no matter how many times he reconsiders, his conclusion remains the same. Their sect does not deserve to be revived. Li Jinsung finally snaps, pressing his blade to the sword dragon's throat, demanding he explain this nonsense or die. But Sa-gun-il is unmoved, his voice chilling as he asks who it was that, blinded by treasure, created a river of blood in Eunan. He drives the point home, questioning if a sect that burned an entire province with its greed has any right to speak of revival. Li Jinsung fires back, trying to dismiss it as a tragedy caused by the poor judgment of a few. A few? Sa-gun-il's gaze sharpens, challenging the son of the former sect leader directly. He asks if Li Jinsung can publicly confess their sins that they offered up Eunan to the blood cult, all because of their greed. He places a hand on his chest, making a solemn vow. If Li Jinsung can do that, he will support his claim and Chang's revival. Li Jinsung grits his teeth, the impossible condition leaving him speechless and seething with frustration. He tries to deflect, arguing others were greedy too, and that apologies can wait until after the sect is restored. A faint, knowing smile plays on Sa-gun-il's lips as he asks him to remember something, leaving Li Jinsung completely lost. He tells Li Jinsung that his father, Ma Wanwang, always had the same excuse. Chang needed power above all else to be a pillar for the righteous. But Sa-gun-il points out the bitter irony of that logic in their chase for power. They lost everything, leaving their sect an empty, powerless shell. His words cut deep, questioning if a sect that brought down an entire province out of greed can now cling to the name of righteousness. Were they ever truly part of the righteous faction to begin with? Li Jinsung can only grip his sword in silent fury. Sa-gun-il turns, noting how much Li Jinsung resembles his father, Ma Wanwang, and because of that resemblance, he turns his back and walks away, severing the bond between them. Li Jinsung snaps, accusing him of abandoning the sect and using their past sins as an excuse to flee his duty. But Sa-gun-il calmly clarifies his stance. As a disciple, he will dedicate his life to getting revenge on the blood cult. However, he makes a chilling vow. If he ever accomplishes that goal, he will discard everything he received from Chang. The declaration leaves Li Jinsung utterly stunned, his hopes for reviving his sect completely shattered. Having cut ties with the past, the Chang sword dragon returns to his quarters. But it seems his day of severing bonds isn't quite over yet. Inside, his vice-captain, Yogyong, waits for him with a heavy heart. She looks up at him with pleading eyes, but finds no sympathy in his gaze. Sa-gun-il coldly states their relationship is nothing more than captain and vice-captain now, and tells her to leave. She desperately asks what she did wrong, promising she can fix anything if he just gives her one more chance. He almost sounds bored as he explains she did nothing wrong, it's just that his relationships never last. His feelings have simply grown cold, he says, and tells her to accept it before she makes things worse. But she can't, collapsing into tears and begging him not to abandon her. He scoffs at her pleas, his patience completely gone, threatening to be the one to leave if she won't. Internally, Sa-gun-il admits he knew how much she craved affection, but pity is no substitute for love. He steels himself, believing that holding on would only be a crueler fate for her in the end. Turning back one last time, he calls out her name, his expression unyielding. He tells her to stop, to cherish herself as a fine woman instead of lowering her worth like this. With a placating smile, he assures her she'll find someone else, believing he's done all he can. But from the floor, she accuses him of leaving her for another woman, for a Miss Tang. The name catches him completely off guard, his cold facade cracking for a moment. Yogyong's desperation turns to fury, screaming that she knows he's in a futile, unrequited love. That's the last straw. He's done with her delusions and declares she'll be transferred out of his squad. And with a final, sharp slam of the door, he's gone. Alone now, Sa-gun-il wonders how on earth she could have known. He was sure he'd shown no signs. He reflects that at first, his interest in the Tang woman was purely strategic. But unlike all the other women, she never looked at him with admiration, and that pricked his pride. He even flaunted his other relationships, but she never wavered, always strong, always haughty. He tried to bury the feelings, throwing himself into training, but a name carved in the heart doesn't fade. The more he tried to forget, the clearer her image became, forcing him to clutch his robes in frustration. But someone else has been listening in Ju Taegyung, using a secret technique to follow the captain. Head tailed him after Cheong Yun's words, and now he can't believe the conversation he just overheard. He recalls their spar while he was giving it his all. She was observing Sagunil the entire time. In his past life, he thought Yo Gyung was the reason for the captain's downfall, but he was wrong. It was always about Tang Yo Un. But that still didn't explain why Ma Yu-gyum's spirit shattered after getting involved with her. Ju Taegyung remembers the public humiliation, how she stood there, unable to speak, soaked in shame. Could Sagunil's rejection have broken him? No, he quickly dismisses the thought. The Ma Yu-gyum he knew wasn't so fragile. Even after offering to step down as sect leader, a man that prideful would have found another way to rise. It's a frustrating puzzle, a piece of his past that simply refuses to fit, and he can't understand why. With his questions left unanswered, the day of the Righteous Blood Summit finally arrived. He'd kept a close watch on Ma Yu-gyum, who acted as if nothing had happened, while Ma Yo-gyung grew more haggard by the day. Suddenly, a powerful presence is felt as a voice announces the arrival of the alliance leader. All at once, the gathered warriors bow in perfect unison, greeting the legendary hero king, Moyong-jeom. Ju Taegyung follows suit, his eyes sharp and focused, ready for the true beginning of this grand assembly. Moyong-jeom's voice echoes across the courtyard as he finally addresses the gathered warriors, praising them for their tireless efforts. Ma Yu-gyum steps forward on behalf of his unit, offering a formal apology for the alliance leader being late due to his busy schedule. An elder immediately begins the political dance, insisting that facing the blood cult is an honor, not a hardship for them. The alliance leader laughs, pleased by the flattery, as the elder showers him with praise, calling him the true symbol of the righteous Murim. Ju Taegyung watches the display with a critical eye, noting just how shamelessly the old man is sucking up to the leader. His attendants finally step in, suggesting they head inside so the younger martial artists can finally get some rest. As the alliance leader and his entourage are guided away, Ju Taegyung silently observes, his mind already working. With the pleasantries over, another elder dismisses the assembly, ordering them to be on standby for the blood cult's arrival that afternoon. Seizing the opportunity, Ju Taegyung turns to Ma Yu-gyum, quietly asking what he thought of the legendary figure. A legend indeed, Moyong-jeom, the supreme patriarch, the current alliance leader, and an absolute powerhouse ranked among the Murim's greatest masters. Ma Yu-gyum admits the alliance leader is indeed powerful, one of the top 3 in the entire Murim. He compares the man to a great mountain, but one whose peak is still visible, not one that pierces the clouds. Ju Taegyung gives a knowing look. He understands that distinction all too well. The alliance leader's presence was certainly overwhelming, he thinks to himself, but it was nothing compared to the immeasurable aura of Cheongigang, one of the 4 devils he faced not long ago. Besides, seeing the supposed pinnacle of the righteous Murim so easily pleased by flattery was disappointing. Just then, the sound of determined footsteps echoes through the courtyard. The young martial artists nearly choke, the pressure feeling like a physical weight crushing them. Ju Taegyung's expression hardens. The helplessness he feels from the man at the front is on par with the lust demons. A new group has arrived. The infamous 13th Gale Flying Dragon Unit and their leader steps forward to greet them. If it weren't for his flashy robes and intense gaze, you'd almost mistake him for a hero of the righteous faction. And you wouldn't be entirely wrong. He was originally the head of the Jian Manor, a man who fell from grace. The captain of the 13th Unit, Pungyang, steps forward to formally greet the leader of the blood cult. But this simple address is a grave insult to one of his followers, who immediately bristles with rage. How dare he speak to their Supreme One with such a common title? A wave of dark, suffocating energy erupts from the man, sending the alliance members stumbling back. Even Ju Taegyung and Ma Yu-gyum feel the pressure of this incredible bloodlust, but the leader simply places a hand on his subordinate's shoulder, ordering Cheokgang to stop. He calmly explains that of course the alliance captain would call him the leader of the blood cult. Unless, he muses, they'd prefer to call the alliance leader Supreme One as well, leaving his follower speechless. The leader chides his subordinate, reminding him that they are here for a meeting, not a brawl. Mortified, Cheokgang drops to his knees, begging for forgiveness and accepting any punishment. Ju Taegyung and Ma Yu-gyum freeze in place as the name sinks in Cheokgang, the iron-bodied mad demon. The whispers spread like wildfire. One of the legendary 36 stars under heaven is kneeling so readily. The Supreme One simply tells him to rise, his punishment to be decided back at the cult's headquarters. He then turns to the alliance, offering a thinly veiled, mocking apology for this unsightly display. Jaha and the other young warriors are completely thrown off, unsure how to respond to the passive aggression. The leader's eyes scan the crowd, remarking that he's well aware of this unit's many young talents. His gaze then locks onto one in particular, Han Gyo-song, the gale-flying dragon himself. He continues, naming Sagun-il, the Jomchang sword dragon, another one of the supposed prodigies. The old man's eyes glint with a condescending amusement as he scans the next face. He then addresses Tang Yo-un, the sword phoenix, with sickly sweet flattery about her famed beauty and talent. Feigning deep envy, the leader slowly turns his attention to his final target. He identifies Ma Yu-gyom, the Jomchang black leopard, and makes a point to mention his renowned father. Then comes the poisoned barb, a casual observation that Ma Yu-gyom doesn't much resemble his heroic father. That's the last straw. The blatant disrespect makes Ma Yu-gyom's blood boil. His hand tightens around the hilt of his sword, shaking with unrestrained fury. He steps forward, ready to defend his family's honor, but the old man just stares back, utterly unfazed. Just as things were getting spicy, one of the cultists reminds his Supreme One that it's time for the meeting. The old leader turns away with a theatrical sigh, lamenting that he couldn't have a more leisurely conversation. Elsewhere in the crowd, Ju Taegyong tries to pinpoint Dudang. But the blood demon's aura is an overwhelming wall. He realizes with frustration that with his current strength, there's absolutely nothing he can do but watch. As the cultists pass, the scarred man, Chiok Gang, shoots a sinister, knowing smirk over his shoulder. The younger alliance members are left completely rattled, their faces pale with unease after the confrontation. Sagunil is stunned that the enemy leader knew all their names, but Ju Taegyong just crosses his arms, looking unimpressed. A wry smile plays on his lips as he wonders if their own alliance leader even remembers his top captains. But the smirk vanishes as his mind replays the scene. Wait a minute, didn't something feel strange just now? A sharp-eyed woman named Chong Yun approaches him, revealing her own theory about the strange moment. Ju Taegyong's eyes widen in disbelief as she suggests the blood demon sent Ma Yu-gyom a telepathic message. She clarifies that she didn't intercept it, but she saw Ma Yu-gyom freeze right as he was about to draw his sword. The pressure from the blood demon was immense, even from a distance. She knows something must have been communicated. Taegyong is left to ponder what could possibly have been said to stop a man like that in his tracks. His mind flashes back to the meeting, which ended anticlimactically, just like in his previous life. The leaders all departed without hesitation, with Hien Yong-bo shouting a fruitless farewell to his own master. It seemed that despite all his efforts, nothing fundamental had changed in this new timeline. That very night, inside his private quarters, Ma Yu-gyom sits alone, clearly troubled.